Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hey, everyone. Happy Friday. We made it. It is happy hour, folks. We made it through another week. I hope you've got some amazing weekend plans. Happy hour is a little bit different than the streams that I normally do on The Cult at 5 p.m. because on happy hour, we watch woke training from start to finish. And we have some tasty, frosty beverages, and you're welcome to drink whatever you want, whether or not it has alcohol in it. And we talk about the woke training, and I firmly believe that people who attend both happy hour and Socialism Saturday, which is tomorrow at 6 p.m., I really do believe that people who regularly come to happy hour and Socialism Saturday know more about what the woke left is doing than anyone else on the internet. And when I say anyone else, I mean the journalists, the commentators, the so-called experts, the people who talk about this stuff all day, every day, because the thing of it is most of the people who are talking about this stuff and obsessing about this stuff and making money on this stuff and making clips about this stuff and putting clips on Twitter under like libs of TikTok, like all of these people, all they're doing is watching clips. We are watching the full breadth. We are watching the boring bits. We're watching the cringy bits. We're learning their language. We're learning how they show up in the world. And we know how to identify them far, 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 far better than the talking heads and the pundits and the journalists. And that's because we do the work of understanding the chaos and the insanity from the woke left. Kino, I have just been straight out. I just got back from the beer store, so I haven't even checked my email yet, but I promise I will on the stream, my friend. Don't worry. We got a good long stream today. All right, guys. Today, we are going to be watching a series that I happened upon by accident, and it is called White and Woke at Work. And it is from a YouTube channel called All Things Equitable. And this is a series, here's the description. This is a show about how white people from all walks of life journey to becoming actively anti-racist. And it will share stories of their personal transformation from awareness of issues impacting Black people and other marginalized groups to the actions they are now taking in their spheres of influence. And there's a whole bunch of episodes of White and Woke at Work, and how lucky for us, they're 30 to 40 minutes long, which means that we get to watch 2 or 3 of them. And I have a couple selections picked out, but in case those selections are kind of boring, we have a whole list of things to be able to choose from. Now, how I found this series is there is a woman on Substack named Chandra. Chandra is like the holy effing terror. SJW, like maxed out, like as virtue signal as you can possibly get. Chandra is a holy terror on Substack Notes. Anytime I log into my Substack Notes, I see like 87 and by the way, I highly recommend Substack Notes. It's so much better than Twitter that it's not even funny, and there's so many good things about it. And one of the great things about it is it helped me to learn about Chandra, because anytime I log into my Substack Notes, I'm not kidding, like 80 tweets from Chandra that are like the most SJW things that I've ever seen in my life. And Chandra and I have actually had a couple interactions, because I'll do things every once in a while. Like I'll comment, I'll say, Chandra, no one feels sorry for you for being a white victim of the world. And then she goes into a tear on that. And it's just kind of like fun. It's kind of like sport. And the reason I bring this up is like when I first encountered Chandra on Substack, I quite literally thought she was a parody. I was like, this cannot be real. This cannot be a real person. This is not a serious individual. And then I learned that Chandra was at one point, although I don't think she is anymore. I don't know if she is anymore, but she was at one point the director of admissions at the University of Florida. No kidding. So I started to kind of looking into Chandra, because I was like, this woman cannot be real. It is just too much. And it turns out that Chandra is real. And I wrote a whole article about it for my Substack so that you can meet Chandra and see just some of the crazy interactions I've had with Chandra. And this isn't news or anything. I think it's important to be able to see like how SJW show up in the wild, again, to kind of like, be able to identify them when they show up in our lives. And while I was doing research on who the hell this person was, I happened to find out that Chandra was on an episode of White and Woke at Work. And that is the first episode that we're going to watch. So Chandra did this episode of White and Woke at Work called The Conscious Activism of Anti-Black Racism, an interview with Chandra, an activist who raises the consciousness of educators and changes the world one student at a time. Well, Chandra's doing a lot of things. I don't know that she's changing hearts and minds, but maybe we'll see a different side of Chandra in this episode today. You never know. And so that's what I thought we would start off with. But because these episodes are so short, and Happy Hour, we usually do extended episodes on Happy Hour. Usually for Happy Hour, I don't pick anything to watch that is less than an hour and a half long. Because again, I want these people to be able to talk. The more these people are able to talk, the more they say the quiet part out loud, and the more things that we can learn from as a community. So because these episodes are so short, I thought we could maybe watch, a couple of them to get a good flavor. The second episode I have picked out is from a woman named Sarah, and Sarah is going to teach us about undoing internalized white supremacy, which is always something that we need to learn about. I know how many white supremacists we got in the chat today. As a reminder, white supremacy means capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. I'm a big fan of capitalism myself. But we're going to learn how to undo our own internal white supremacy so we can all become anti-capitalists, so that we can all become socialists. And then, because we don't want it just to have it all be women, men can be SJWs too, guys. We have this interview with Jonathan, who Jonathan says that he is recognizing that he is not racist, that saying that I'm not racist is not enough. It is not enough to not be racist. You have to be actively anti-racist, especially when you are a white man. We don't know if he's cisgender. We don't know if he's straight. We can try to suss that out later. But God damn it. Sorry, guys, to cough into the mic. That snuck up on me there. Hang on. Soda break. I really shouldn't be drinking soda. That's probably the problem. Anyway, Jonathan is a white man, and therefore he needs to account for his inherent racism, and saying that he is not racist is just not enough. And so we're going to watch some episodes. If they turn out to be boring, we can watch something else, but I think we got plenty of options today for happy hour. Who is ready to watch some woke videos? Oh, don't worry, F in the cap. I have beer. Don't worry, we'll get to that. But before we get to the beer, I've got a couple of quick things. Number one, please make sure you are subscribed to my Substack, carlin.substack.com. I have so many articles I need to publish for my Substack. It's been a rather light week, not because I don't have stuff to talk about, just because there's been actually so much stuff going on in the land of like Steven Crowder, Candace Owens insanity that I've been working on that just to kind of like, quite frankly, take advantage of the situation. But there are actually like 4 or 5 articles that I have in progress for my Substack that will hopefully be coming out very, very soon. And so please make sure you subscribe. You can subscribe for free. But the best way to support the work I'm doing, if you feel the need to do so, is by becoming a paid member of my Substack. And I have this little handy dandy article that is pinned to the top of the chat, but I'll just put it in again just in case. About 4 ways that you can support my work if you feel inclined to do so, because of course I am completely funded by you. The first thing that you can do is to fund my work. You can fund my work in many different ways, but the best way right now is by becoming a paid subscriber on Substack. I have a goal of hitting 1,000 paid subscribers on Substack. Now that might seem like an arbitrary number, but on Substack, I get a special check mark when I hit 1,000 paid subscribers. I already have the check mark for having hundreds of paid subscribers, which is very nice. And of course, I do really appreciate everyone who's supporting my work. I can't do it without you, but I get an even more special check mark when I hit 1,000 paid subscribers. And well, I want it. I do. We always like these arbitrary things that come as a form of personal validation for the 10 to 15 hours a day of work that I put into this every single day. You guys know what I'm talking about. And so I would really like to be able to hit that number. So if you want to sign up as a paid subscriber, $5 a month, $50 a year, then that will really help me to continue to do what I'm doing. If you don't want to do that and you want to go on another platform instead, I have links for you in this post. You can join my locals community, which I firmly believe I have the best community on all of locals. I really do. It is sane. It's our own little bastion of sanity. It's awesome. You can fund my work via Patreon. You can get all sorts of different perks on Patreon that you can't get anywhere else. And of course, you can always make a one-time gift at activelyunwoke.com/support. It's just that my preference right now is Substack. And so that's the one that I'm going to encourage you on. But whatever works best for you is fine with me. And of course, I really do appreciate it. Now, the next way you can help me out is by subscribing to a different Substack I have. This Substack is called The Cult, which is the name of my show. Now, the reason I have a different Substack for The Cult is because every day before I go live, I send out an email to subscribers of The Cult saying, here's what I'm covering on the show today. Here are links to the articles, and here are my show notes. And so basically what it is when you subscribe, and this is totally for free, is you get an email before I go live to learn about what I'm going to be covering that day. And you might be interested in what I'm covering. You might not be interested in what I'm covering. Like you can't please everyone, but I do try to give you a little indication of what's going to be talked about on the show. I give you links to all of the different streaming platforms, to include obviously YouTube, but Odyssey, Rockfin, and Rumble. And shout out to everyone watching on an alternative platform. I really do encourage it. And then you get to decide whether or not you want to come and join me. So you can find that at thecult.substack.com, and you can find video archives of the show. I'm also getting an audio-only podcast up and running on the show. You can also subscribe to it in Apple and Spotify right now, but you can find all that information over at The Cult. Another way that you can support my work is by heading over to unwokeart.com and picking up some sick merch. And so this is a place where you can buy t-shirts and mugs and all that sort of stuff. I have got a special Tucker Carlson collection that is only going to be available for about another week right now. And these are limited edition designs that I made that I think are really cool. And so you can pick up your special Tucker Carlson merch, but there are also other things you can buy. Like this is actually my best-selling product in the entire store, which is the Be Different Cheshire Cat mug. That's available. We also got the dragon burning down the Capitol that says, "There goes our hero." And I really like that. And then, of course, we do have our special limited edition Tucker Carlson merch. That is another way that you can support the work I'm doing and get something cool to give to your friends and family, or even just to wear yourself if you like it. Bot likes the cat poster. I thought it was pretty great. So I do appreciate that. And then the most important thing that everyone can do to help me out is to share my work, share my Substack, share my videos on your platforms with your friends and family, whoever needs to learn about this stuff. If you can't financially support me, I understand not everyone is in a position to do so, but you are all in a position to share and bring other people into happy hour, bring other people into Socialism Saturday. Say to them, this is stuff that you need to see, and you're not going to believe what Carlin shows you on these streams, because it is really unbelievable sometimes. And so I can't grow my audience without your help. Please share my work out there. Help us bring more people into our community. And of course, I really appreciate that. We also have a couple super chats, another great way to support the work I'm doing. Jen says, yup, let's mount that like button to woke it up. Thank you, Jen. I do appreciate that. And then Quick Quaid for the $20 super chat. I do appreciate it. I can't subscribe to nothing. Well, thank you, Quick Quaid. I do appreciate that. All right, guys. Now, a couple other things before we head into the presentation today. Let's see. Oh, I need to plug Socialism Saturday, because we're about to enter a really exciting time in Socialism Saturday, because Socialism Saturday is a stream I do at 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Every Saturday, we watch real socialists, not AOC, not Bernie Sanders, not CNN. Those aren't real socialists. We watch the farthest left of the far left. It is the most dystopian thing you will see all week long. And I show you what the real socialists are saying. And the reason that we do this is a precursor, a preview of what is coming from the Democratic Party, because the socialists are saying things that a couple years later become talking points of the Democrats. So, but we're about to enter a really special time, because there is a YouTube channel called Red May. And we have watched a fair bit of socialist content from Red May. This is a group in Seattle. They are explicitly socialist. They don't hide it or anything. They are Marxists. They're socialists. And every single May, they get together and they create a metric ton of content all about their little socialist ideas. Well, guess what, guys? It's going to be May very soon, in but a couple of days. And that means in the month of May, we're going to be keeping up with Red May as much as we can. They're already announcing their schedule for Red May 2023. We're going to be filled with socialist content during May. Who's ready to get our socialist Marxism on? It's going to be so great. We're going to do extra socialism next month, because they're going to give us so much great content, and there's going to be so many things to watch, and they're going to be so dystopian, and it's going to be so great. But I thought, to kick us off, we're going to do a retrospective on something that I did find on Red May. Let me see if I can even just find it here so I can show you. Here it is. This is what we're going to watch tomorrow. It's called EndNotes Presents That Summer Feeling, a conversation about the 2-year anniversary of the George Floyd Rebellion. So that is what the socialists are calling the riots in the summer of 2020. The George Floyd Rebellion. And so we're going to listen to them talk about the George Floyd Rebellion and reminisce about the George Floyd Rebellion. And that's going to be tomorrow at 6 p.m. And it's going to be great. Oh, God, I love that. I really shouldn't love this stuff as much as I do, but I'm just like, I love dystopia so much. And this is like real life. It's maybe shouldn't make me this happy, because it is real life, and that's kind of scary. But like, it does make me happy, because I just, I like extremes. What can I say? But you guys all love it too. We love Socialism Saturday on the channel. So I do hope I will see you guys tomorrow for that. Also, we do have bingo today. Here is our Unwoke bingo card. I've just put it in the chat below. And when you get that Unwoke bingo card, what you want to do is hit generate card. And this is a game that we play as we're watching Happy Hour, just to keep us interested, to make sure we're staying sharp. You don't win anything if you get bingo, but you do get a free square in the middle. Then we're going for lines or we're going for corners. If you get lines or corners, shout out bingo in the chat. We will give you a hearty round of applause. And then we're going for blackout bingo. So a nice little game we can do together. We do play bingo on Socialism Saturday as well. I have a special socialist bingo. And so we'll enjoy that tomorrow as well. But I think it's going to be a good day for bingo. I really do. I have a good feeling about it. So everyone, make sure you download your bingo card. Every bingo card is unique, and we're going to have a great time with that. All right. The last thing before we get started is I just got home from the beer store, so I need a drink. Does anyone else need a drink? It's been a long week, man. Long week. Let me show you what I got. We do have a tradition on Happy Hour that I show you the 4 craft beers that I buy religiously on Friday afternoon at my local craft beer store. And I tell you about them because I love craft beer. And for those of you who have recently had to give up Bud Light, I want to provide you with some options because you shouldn't be drinking Bud Light in the first place. There is a world of amazing, so delicious, beautiful craft beer out there. And if you are used to like Bud Light or Miller Lite or Coors Light or any sort of wussy white light beer, like, you need to expand your horizons. And I'm here to help you do that. I'm here to talk to you about the craft beers that I like. They may not be the same ones that you like, but there's so many of them. So I'm going to show you 4 that I bought today, and then you guys are going to get to vote on which one I drink first. So let me grab my beer out of my cooler. Hang on. And I don't drink all 4 on the stream, but I just get 4 because the can rings come in 4, so it works out well. All right. So the first beer I have today, let's see. The first beer I have today, isn't this a pretty can? I do have a collection of pretty beer cans in my office that is growing by the day from my Happy Hour and Socialism Saturday beers, but I thought this was extra pretty and extra artistic. It's very kind of like feminine. I liked it. And this is called Endless Ride Kettle Sour. And this is a blueberry and lemon zest sour. So a great combination. This is from Battery Steel Brewing Company. I'm not sure where exactly that is, and there's no description on the can. So a lemon and blueberry sour beer. That would be really great, nice and summery. The next one I got because I loved the can. I saw the can and I was like, that's a can I want on my collectible can wall. Okay. It just looks cool. It's like got people with raspberries as their head. And it's called Salinity Now Raspberry, which kind of seemed a little socialist if I was honest about it. Almost reminded me of Solidarity. I don't know if that is a connection. This is from Hobbs Brewing. And I think they're in, this is a New Hampshire brewery. So yay, New Hampshire. And this is a fruited goose style ale, a kettle sour goose ale brewed with the Isle of Shoals New Hampshire sea salt and toasted coriander, aged on a generous dose of raspberries. Pucker up. So this is going to be raspberry, coriander, and sea salt. Yay! Next beer we have is, I almost bought something else, and then at the last minute I saw this beer and I was like, I have to get it. This is going to be from Pipe Dream Brewing, which is also in New Hampshire. Tutti Frutti Cereal Sour Ale with real fruit. And this says this sour ale was brewed with loopy fruit cereal, so Fruit Loops, and then aged on hundreds of pounds of blueberries, lemons, cherries, raspberries, limes, cranberries, and blackberries. Tutti Frutti cereal beer. I mean, come on. But the last beer is a dedication to Joshua. Because Joshua, when we were on our special edition Steven Crowder stream earlier, said, Carlin, you should get a peanut butter beer. And I was like, well, I got to see what they have at the beer store, Joshua. Ask and you shall receive. I do indeed have a peanut butter beer. This is from River Styx Brewing, and this is in Massachusetts, We're going to try not to hold it against Joshua or against the beer or Joshua for that matter, because Joshua is actually from Massachusetts, so it works out. We're going to try not to hold it against them that this is from Massachusetts, but that's all right. And this is an imperial pastry stout brewed with peanut butter cups and chocolate peanut butter candy pieces. It is a peanut butter cup stout beer, and it's an imperial, which means it's extra alcoholic. So, guys, those are your 4 choices for voting today. We've got our endless ride, which is lemons and blueberry. We have Salinity Now, which is going to be a raspberry. We have Tutti Frutti, which is our cereal sour. And then we've got our Imperial Peanut Butter Cup Stout. The choice is up to you. I am putting the poll in the chat right now. You let me know which one you want me to start off with. And we'll see how that goes. And in the meantime, I will set us up to start our stream. Guys, please mount that like button as we are getting set up here. Jen says, part of me is like, with the first 3, mix them all together and make a beer punch. You know, Jen, that's not the worst idea in the world, but I want to sample them all separately to find out what they taste like. I mean, it's only diligent, but really not a bad idea. Not, you know, we'll probably have far worse ideas later. All right, guys, I'm just getting ready to stream this, getting my sound all set up. Oh, you guys are really going to make me start with that Imperial peanut butter, aren't you? You had to make me start with the Imperial peanut butter. Jesus Christ, it's not even close. All right, fine. It's not even close. Tutti Frutti's coming in second, but people want the peanut butter beer today. They're like, we're going to get Carlin extra drunk on this stream. All right. Hang on, let me just put the rest of the beer in the cooler. All right, Imperial Peanut Butter Stout it is, everyone. Cheers. Don't worry, we'll get to the Tutti Frutti at some point. See, the good thing is sometimes on Fridays, I have to be worried that Victor is going to steal the beer that I don't drink. But I happen to know that Victor has to get up early tomorrow to go hiking. And so I'm not actually worried about him stealing my Tutti Frutti cereal beer. So I'll be able to drink it, if nothing else, tomorrow for Socialism Saturday. That's going to be a nice thick beer. Oh my God. There's our stout. Cheers, everyone. If you're drinking something fun, yes, let's toast to Joshua. This is a great, let's all toast to Joshua. To Joshua. May he live long and prosper. All right, guys, happy Friday. Let us know if you are drinking something fun in the chat. Let me take a sip and tell you how it is. It's not bad. I have to say. Cheers to Joshua with the peanut butter beer. All right, guys, let's get this show started. We are watching White and Woke at Work. We do this for happy hour every week starting at 5 p.m. We watch woke training from start to finish, the boring bits, the cringy bits. Let's see what's going on in the land of the white liberal guilty women.
So hello and welcome to another episode of White and Woke at Work. I am very pleased to be today with Chandra Hardy, my next guest.
Chandra!
And Chandra is a colleague that I've met through the platform LinkedIn, and she's been really, really vocal in this movement for social justice prior to getting kicked off LinkedIn, but she's back now, and we're really happy to have her on.
Chandra got banned from LinkedIn? How does one get banned from LinkedIn? Even I'm not banned I'm streaming on LinkedIn right now. Hi, LinkedIn. Hi. I'm very professional with my beer drinking on Fridays. Like, what do you have to do to get kicked off of LinkedIn?
Our podcast. So thank you for coming on, Chandra. How are you?
My pleasure. Doing great. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Tell me a little bit about your activities prior to, as I mentioned, your removal from LinkedIn, and of course your activism on the platform.
Yeah, you know, I usually start with the family history. I was very fortunate to be born into a unique family.
Look at Chandra just ignoring the question that's asked to her and just going down whatever road she wants to go down.
grandfather, who was a civil rights activist during Jim Crow and a humanitarian in Ethiopia and Liberia. In fact, I have some of the artifacts that he brought with him from 1950s Ethiopia and Liberia. When he came home, it was still the late 50s. He became involved in civil rights work. So he had a law degree from Hofstra University. He never actually practiced as an attorney, but what he did do was hire actors to apply for housing. When they were denied housing on the basis of race, he filed lawsuits against entities. So he did a lot of work that became his legacy, really, passed down through family members who also acquired sort of a social justice mindset. I would say it's somewhere deep down in the DNA. At 11 years old, I was writing about the injustice of the U.S. dropping bombs on Libya, and so I
Chandra has been an activist her whole life.
Had from an early age an understanding that the world was not a just and fair place, and that I could be an instrument of change. I could help push ideas, more equitable ideas forward, and so. I sought to do
her
that
her Wokifides, her Wokifides.
I pursued a Master of Education, did 1 year of school counseling in an elementary school, but really found that my passion was with young adults. So I sought to pursue a career in higher education, worked at two public universities, major universities, the University of Florida and the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where I earned 2 degrees. And so it was there that I started.
Worked at 2 public universities, the University of Florida and the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. How nice. Is YouTube interrupting for ads today? Well, their ad revenue's down. Sorry, guys.
Equity work, working for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, a program called Achievement in Mainstreaming. I'm not sure if they would use that same language these days, but at the time I was hired in 2000. That was a program for first generation students. It was an honor to get my feet wet with equity work at the higher ed level. And from there, I managed a graduate program in information systems and operations management, where I continued that sort of work, diversifying a program and growing it 300% over 15 years. But during that time, I found innovative ways to open doors of opportunity for diverse students, non-traditional students, first generation students, and others who were interested in careers in information systems. And so it was a real privilege to be able to open those doors and be a champion for young adults seeking to change the field of technology and bring new ideas and new representation.
She's like, stop talking, Chandra.
What did opening in doors look like for that community?
Yeah, so I never had a hyper focus on standardized test scores. Early on, I understood that would create tremendous barriers for students. There are a lot of students who otherwise are extremely talented, and for a variety of reasons.
You can tell she's annoyed.
Why? 100%. Standardized testing.
She's like already regretting this decision.
Those barriers, right? So if you look at the research, standardized tests, including the SAT,
very much
ACT,
regretting
GRE,
it.
and all of those, GMAT, are actually very poor predictors of success in academic programs. And so what we need to do is look at those instruments that have typically been biased and created obstacles for certain students, particularly underrepresented minority students, and start to break down some of those barriers that we've learned are no longer effective, right? So coming up with new and innovative ways to find talent, recruit talent. I found that the students who very often had lower GPAs, perhaps lower than the program would have liked to see, but when you talk to them, they are first or second generation students, sometimes with parents who don't speak English. Sometimes they have a wide variety of life experiences that can create some obstacles. So what I would do typically is sit down with those students and listen to them.
Can I say something that's not going to be like very PC? I'm among friends, right? Live on the internet. It really bothers me. And I say this as someone who is married to an immigrant who English is not my husband's first language. It really, really bothers me when people come to live in the United States and they're here for an extended period of time. I'm not talking like a couple months. I'm talking like, decades. And they refuse to effing learn English. It really bothers me. If you are immersed, and I would say this of any country, if you're going to go live in France, learn fucking French, okay? And if you are immersed in a culture and a society where there is, I mean, I know we don't have an official language or anything, but English is the very dominant language in the United States. And if you're going to live in the United States, then why aren't you effing making just taking steps towards learning the language that most of the people here speak? And I would say that of any country with any language. If I was living in Japan, I would damn well be learning Japanese. If I was living in China, I would learn Mandarin or whatever. I don't think this is too much to ask. And the reason this probably bothers me more than like most things is I remember, like, so people know, like, my husband, like, he came here legally, but then he overstayed his visa and then we got married. How lucky was he? It wasn't a green card marriage. We're still together. We've been together for 12 years. If it was just a green card marriage, he could have left me like a long, long time ago. He could have left me after like 4 years, and he hasn't. He stuck around. But we had to go to immigration court an awful lot after we first got married, because it was like we had to go do these regular check-ins in immigration court just to make sure, yep, still in the country, still haven't committed any crimes, like whatever. And every single time that we went to immigration court, basically we would be around a giant room full of, I'm just going to say it, a giant room full of Spanish speaking people from Mexico and South America that damn well refused to effing learn English. And my husband used to get very annoyed about this because he was like, I wanted to come here. I wanted to live here. I learned English. Why won't these people effing learn English? And so I started to get annoyed by it too, because I was like, you know what? You're right. So I get very annoyed when people come and live here for an extended period of time and they don't know English. I don't think there's any excuse for it in the world. There's so many different programs that can help you learn the language, and I don't think it's racist of me to say that. I'm sorry, I just don't. All right, those are my feelings.
And hear their stories and understand what some of those obstacles were. And very often I would take a chance, right? So I was privileged in that I could single-handedly make admission decisions. So I had that flexibility to see potential in a student and decide that, yes, this person deserves a chance, perhaps a second chance if they didn't manage to, perform at the level they would have liked at the undergraduate level. But there was so much opportunity in technology. And I saw students coming in who didn't fit a traditional profile, still knocking it out of the park, very often, not because of their technical skills, which they had, which were presumed to be there by employers, but because of their interpersonal skills and their perseverance and their grit. And resiliency is probably the number one factor for success in an academic program, because we all
in
fall
anything,
down,
really.
we all make mistakes, and we learn from those, presumably, and we become better. So I took a chance on students who deserved it, who had earned that chance, not because I was being charitable, and not because I'm the gatekeeper of any particular opportunity these students earned their way in, but it takes a special individual to recognize talent where the numbers don't match, right?
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about that gatekeeping, just because.
No, that's how she talks.
The Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith and her family just yesterday.
Oh God, we're gonna get into Jada, really? Eric, thank you for the super chat. Wait, the woke girl is going to make it all about herself and not even address the first question. Color me shocked. don't you think, Eric, that it's a little bit racist for the liberal white lady to come on this oppressed Black lady show, presumably to answer the questions that the Black lady has, the oppressed Black lady has, and Chandra is too interested in talking about herself and how she sees the world as a liberal white lady to even bother to answer the questions that the oppressed Black lady is asking her? I just find it to be all very racist, if I'm honest about it. Thank you for the super chat again. Appreciate it.
And, we saw, I forget the young lady's name, but she came on there and she was talking about, the whole big scandal where her parents bought her way into the prestigious schools. They had power and access and, of course, white privilege that went along with it that got her in some pretty powerful doors. So I just wanted to know, curiosity, was this a really prestigious institution? Did people, try to grease your palm, so to speak, to have their children kind of, get a leg up? Is that
no, not so much at the graduate level. Every now and then you'd have a pushy parent, but I will say that typically they don't come from underrepresented demographics. Those typically would be parents that maybe wouldn't be so pushy. But parents who are used to wielding their privilege as a sort of pass to get things done. Parents who have obviously insider knowledge about the college experience, right? Creates a huge advantage for those
That means
students.
they went to college.
And so every now and then I would
not
get a call
insider
from
knowledge.
parents.
They went to college.
As long as it wasn't pushy, you typically would, try to diplomatically, empower them to empower their child to advocate on their own behalf.
Right.
But the students who self-advocated the most, who came in person, who understood that in-person interaction, right, and that excuse me, I have some lawn noise, and some thunder. It's Florida. Those were the students who were most self-sufficient, who were most resilient, who could operate very often without, the assistance from parents who may not be able to help. Maybe those parents didn't attend college themselves. So, and I say that it was really my privilege to be able to open that door. And if it hadn't been me, it might have been somebody else. So it's not that I played that significant of a role, but it is truly an honor to be able to do that for students who deserve it, who are very deserving.
And are you still in that field?
I am not currently in that field.
What are you doing now, Chandra?
I would say I'm in a transition period right now. I've
no
spent,
job.
2 decades in academia.
Unemployed.
I've seen a lot. Frankly, I've seen things that I wish I had not seen. Pervasive discrimination towards women and people of color, primarily.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Chandra.
Institutions.
You're so full of shit.
Walking the halls of a predominantly white institution means seeing typically powerful, wealthy white men in portraits on the walls. Some of them dead, some of them long dead. We often forget about the power of imagery, and that when students walk into a place where they don't see themselves represented, how that makes them feel, right? Yeah. Sort of unwelcome. And you get to a point where you see so much discrimination happening out in the open. Okay, I'll give you an example of a dean search that happened at one particular top 10 university, where all of the candidates were white men, every last one.
Okay.
And the excuse given is always that it's a supply and demand issue, right? It's not a supply and demand issue. It's a resource issue. It's a priority issue.
Right.
It's a matter of not creating pipelines and relationships where you might find diverse talent. And so I'm very skilled in that area. I'm very skilled in being able to talk to people from all walks of life and connect with people who are often very surprised that I have that ability.
And why is that? Why?
Does anyone believe Chandra when she says that she's very skilled at connecting with people from all walks of life? Because I don't believe that Chandra is very skilled at this. I believe that she views Black people as like a token, for lack of a better term. I don't think she has any real Black friends. She might know Black people. I'm not questioning whether or not she knows Black people, but I strongly doubt that she's ever actually had a real conversation with a Black person in her life, or it wasn't just a virtue signal to make her feel better about being white.
Why do you have that ability, Chandra?
Because I'm what they call nosy in a friendly way.
That's no.
I really want to get to know people.
That's not a real thing, Chandra.
In general.
No, you don't.
To the extent that people are willing to share, and I'm very often surprised and honored at how much they're willing to open up and share their very personal experiences with me. So I always keep that sacred.
Chandra, you're not even connecting with your interviewer.
To me is absolutely critical. Protecting my students, empowering my students. When I was sending them out into the working world, which can be a very hostile place, as we know, for women of color. And so it's when I look back at some of the recommendations or comments, reviews, I don't know how LinkedIn calls them, that students left, I discovered that I had actually been quite a force in their lives and had really little idea, because I was with them for 2 years of their lives, not a long period of time. But you're in your early 20s typically when you're in graduate school, mid 20s. And I remember the 20s to be a tumultuous time of life. What I really enjoyed was being in the role of sort of den mother. I was the main point of contact for the program. I was somebody who students could, talk to when they couldn't find a faculty member, and very often faculty members are busy with their research and their teaching and not able to do that kind of work. So it's a very unique role. I managed to program.
Chandra is basically a busybody
for many years.
I'm surmising.
Having that level of intimacy with my students in terms of opening up my home at the holidays, international students who couldn't go home and needed a place to go, and I was always very, very pleased that I could provide that kind of environment.
A busybody who is desperate to be liked by people.
Similarly, in terms of
probably lots of self-esteem issues.
Institutions. Now I've worked at 2 major universities, and I have to admit that it is disappointing to see systemic racism and sexism playing out.
How?
Sort of
one example, Chandra. One example.
There is not really even an attempt to hide it. When you walk into a department that is one of the largest departments at a university, and you immediately notice, having lived in the South for 20 years, and this was during the 18 months that I was living in Massachusetts, seeing absolute missing demographics, seeing out of a population of 147 PhD students.
So just so people know, how Chandra came to my attention is Chandra was very pissed off that I went to the Socialist Conference and besmirched the region of Massachusetts that she was from. And she was really upset about that, and she let me know it. I was not allowed to besmirch Western Massachusetts.
It's not one Black student, which I find near criminal. When we're talking about a public flagship research university should do better. We can do better. And sometimes you're hired under false pretenses. Sometimes you are hired to do diversity work, as they call it, equity work. And it sometimes can be a matter of optics. Do they really
in
mean
most
what they
cases
say? Are
yes
they really trying to implement change and
no,
gauging
they're
the
not.
level of authenticity on the part of
they're just virtue signaling. Congratulations, Chandra. I do love
that kind of work is really important, because
there is something deeply satisfying to me about like a true believer woke leftist figuring out that when she's hired into a role, it is literally just for show, that no one is actually no one actually really cares about actually doing the diversity work, that it is all just a virtue signal, and her being really frustrated because she really wants to do all this crazy shit, and basically these colleges, and by the way, both the University of Florida and the University of Massachusetts, more so UMass than Florida, but University of Florida is pretty effing woke. These are very woke schools. And even Chandra saying they basically hired me into these diversity positions and then they wouldn't let me do diversity. Can you believe it? Because it's just a virtue signal. None of them actually believe this. Yeah, that interviewer is like having enough. I'm going to be interested to see this interviewer with other people who are not Chandra.
If you find yourself in a situation where it is primarily about optics, you could be out of a job. So that explains my unemployment to some extent. Is that I see things that I can't unsee.
Hang on, I need a drink. That was just too beautiful. That was perfect. Chandra was like, you know, they just never want you to do actual diversity work when they hire you, and that explains my unemployment. Can we just relive that glorious moment again? I promise not to rewind Chandra too much, just this once.
Is primarily about optics. You could be out of a job. So that explains my unemployment to some extent. Is that I see things that I can't unsee, and I can't also operate on the basis of, see something, say nothing. When we're
beautiful. It was glorious. That makes the whole thing worthwhile. Jen, thank you for the super chat. In 02 to 06, I worked for DHS in Citizenship and Immigration for San Bernardino County as an application clerk in the adjudication wing with a focus on marriage fraud. And yup, everything Dr. K was talking about was and is true in regards to like immigration courts and the whole oh god, you guys have like it's like it is like a whole other universe in which no one speaks English in the immigration courts. It really is. I'm sorry you had to do that, Jen, but I do appreciate the super chat. Guys, please mount that like button if you have not already, or as Robot Shlomo, I don't know how to pronounce that, Robot has done here, mounted it ever so gently. You can be hard with the like button. You can be soft with the like button. It's entirely up to you. You can gently caress the like button. As long as that like button is touched in some way that aligns with your sensibilities, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We're taught to do otherwise. So
it's really interesting that principled people, right? Principled people who are truth tellers at their core are always the ones that are the most unappreciated in the workplace. Would you agree?
I would agree. And there's in fact research to back that
I
up.
actually do agree with that, by the way. Yeah. Regardless of if Chandra's a crazy person, I do actually agree with that.
For similar misdeeds of white men in the workplace, much, much stronger punishments for women and people of color for similar offenses.
Why do you think that is, Chandra? I mean, I have my own theories, but it's interesting to hear it from the perspective of a white woman because, your experience is quite unique. So why do you think that happens to women in particular?
I mean, I think that there's no secret that we're still operating in a world where white men have most of the power.
Right.
I was in a STEM environment, so science, technology, engineering, math for 16 years, predominantly white and Asian male dominated. Even women who enter those fields very often are forced to operate similarly to the men. I wouldn't say at all times that women are the allies either, but it's more understandable when you're operating in a male-dominated space that you would align yourself with those who have the power to determine your advancement.
Right.
So, and there is a bit of a dynamic at most universities, which is that staff, even professional staff like myself with master's degree and decades of experience in equity work, will typically be treated as though they're not experts at what they do. When
that is very true. Chandra's correct about that. That was my experience as well.
Right. But I'm finding more and more that academia is out of touch. Academia is archaic and in fact not very innovative. Certainly not innovative when it comes to equity work. Right. So that's a surprise.
They're okay with mediocrity, right? It's like the people who should be retained in workplaces that are the best.
Well, okay, so in general, and this is just separate from that, for those who don't know, I am an organizational psychologist in real life, so I do know about such things. In general, organizations want mediocre people. That's the truth. I know that's not what people want to hear, but this is why I'm a very big fan of side hustles. This is why I encourage everyone to create multiple streams of income for themselves. This is why I think that working for yourself is one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself. If you are a highly motivated and passionate person, there is absolutely no need for you to work for other people or for you to work for an organization, because in the vast majority of organizations, they want mediocre people. They want people who are easy to control, who are yes men, who will just follow orders. They don't want people who are innovative. They don't want people who go the extra mile. They will take advantage of you if you go the extra mile, but they aren't going to reward you for going the extra mile. In fact, sometimes you might get punished for going the extra mile because it's easier to control you. That's why. I mean, think about it. For the people who have moved up the ladder in organizations, like your vice presidents, even your CEOs, things like that, they get very threatened when there are people underneath them that are lower ranked, that are passionate and focused and are showing up and are doing cool things. And most importantly, they want to change the way the organization has been doing things. And they might be suggesting changing it for the better, but ultimately they're usually suggesting changing things that those people in senior leadership have actually put in place. And so there's a lot of ego involved. And there's competition too. I think they're afraid that they're going to take their jobs. But I've just seen this over and over and over and over and over again, where mediocrity is rewarded and exceptionalism, people who really go out of their way and they love what they do and they're passionate about what they do, they are almost always the first people to be fired because they're rocking the boat too much. And they'll come up with any excuse in the world. If an organization wants to fire you, they will find a reason to fire you. They can come up with any excuse in the world to do it. But that's reality. So if you are a highly driven and passionate person, please start your own business. Not for me, it doesn't matter to me at all, but for the sake of your own sanity, for the sake of taking care of yourself. And quite frankly, you can make a lot more money working on your own than you can ever work with an organization. You would be shocked how much money you can make when you focus on it. You have to work. Don't get me wrong. Starting your own business and building a business is not easy. You have to work, you have to hustle. But if you're going to work and hustle anyway, why are you doing it for someone else? Why aren't you building something that you can quite literally run however you want to and never be fired? Shauna, thank you for the super chat. Where do you think this "Please Love Me" Snow Bunny woke girl gets it from? It sounds like she may have actually been girl bullied. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she probably did have a hard time of it. I think that that's very true. Like I said earlier, I think that Chandra actually does have self-esteem issues. That's why she's virtue signaling so epically to get people she's like me, like me, like me. Look, I'm doing all the right things. I'm saying all the right things. Like me, like me, like me. Why don't you like me? Can't we just be friends? And that there's something sad about that. There really is. And maybe I shouldn't be making fun of Chandra as much as I am, even though she makes it really, really effing easy to do so. It is a sad thing, and it is something that probably shouldn't be celebrated if we're honest about it. But I do think in general with the woke ideology, what you see is a lot of looking outside yourself for external validation rather than looking internally and validating yourself. They don't have a strong locus of control. They always need other people to say you're good, or you're doing the right thing, or all this stuff. They can't give themselves the love that they're looking for from other people. Probably because Chandra was never shown love by her mother. That's probably what she's really after, is love from the mother. And she's looking for that everywhere except for from herself. So it's a sad thing. We probably shouldn't be making fun of it, but Chandra is just such a holy goddamn terror on Substack notes that, sometimes you reap what you sow. It is what it is. Flaw, I heard you ran into the nationalists somewhere. I think I saw you post that somewhere. I would love to learn more about that. Good to see you, my friend. Let's keep going.
Are the brightest, are bringing that innovation and that insight,
or not the nationalists, the socialists,
and that knowledge that is so lacking in so many places. It's like they want to keep the wool over their eyes and just not consider that information or that intel. It's really interesting. You'd think it'd be more valued.
You're onto something with that. I think that what happens is,
let's see, Shauna with the follow-up question. Hang on, it's going to load in a second here. Why love from the mother? Well, it could be love from father as well, but I mean, like, most of the time when people are acting, I mean, here's like a little psychology shortcut, I guess. Most of the time when people are acting crazy, they are playing out situations that happened in childhood. Most of us repeat the same patterns that we experienced in childhood over and over and over and over and over again. So if you are desperately seeking love from people, it's probably because you didn't get the love you needed in your childhood. And usually it happens to be from mother because that is the role of mother, but it could be from father as well. It could be from both. And so you play out this pattern of like you were desperate for love for mother in childhood, and so you tried to do it and it didn't work out, and so now you're playing it out with adults in the real world where you're still virtue signaling, looking for that love that you were desperate for as a kid in childhood, and it's just the way it goes. So that's why everyone needs to find a good therapist. Work out your own baggage. Identify what your baggage is, identify the patterns of it, and become aware of it. And I'll tell you what, man, some of the biggest trouble that I've ever gotten myself in my life, in retrospect, I didn't realize it at the time, but in retrospect, I was repeating patterns that started in my childhood that I never quite managed until it got me in such bad trouble that I couldn't help but acknowledge it anymore and try to work on that. But we all carry baggage from our childhood. None of our parents are perfect. Our parents, keep in mind, our parents also had imperfect parents. So it's not like all their fault. I'm not saying they're evil or anything, but our parents had imperfect parents. Their parents had imperfect parents. Imperfection gets passed down through the generations. That's the real generational trauma, if you will. And so I'm not saying blame mother and father. In fact, the more that you can forgive mother and father for the mistakes that they made, because they probably made them because those same mistakes were made to them, the better off it's going to be. Now, I also say that knowing how difficult that is. Extremely difficult. So it's not like snap of a finger, but if you could identify the patterns, then you can start to reduce them. So you're also getting free psychology lessons on Happy Hour. Guys, please mount that like button for me. Let's continue.
Is that if the research doesn't fit the narrative, and by the way, I tried to no avail to help particularly faculty who maybe the moral imperative of diversity doesn't appeal to them so much. I mean, let's face it, that not everyone is compelled in a moral or ethical direction.
Yeah.
But there is a way to talk about it in terms of a business imperative that should appeal. And when you have the skill to be able to bring the research, bring the data, right, that suggests that when you, going back to the barriers that we create to higher education, when you eliminate those barriers, you broaden the applicant pool. You, in fact...
Oh, no. Hang on. Well, not no. Thank you, Shauna, for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. Oh, I wanted to ask before, do you think that there are trauma cycles that are more common on the left versus the right? When I was harder right, one thing I saw was that females tended towards OCD. Just curious. That's a really interesting question. I do think that generally speaking, I have really messed up my knitting somewhere. Oh, okay, I'll fix it in a second. I do think that generally speaking, the right tends to be much more perfectionistic. So I can absolutely understand why someone on the political right would develop OCD, because it's like appearance is everything on the right, right? Like you always have to look perfect and have the perfect outfit and have the perfect haircut, and you need to get the perfect push-up bra and all of these things. And I could absolutely see that developing into something that's very OCD, whereas the left is much more accepting of appearances, but it's also much more chaotic, right? And so maybe that is a spectrum where it's like perfectionism versus chaos, and everyone's living on at some place on that spectrum, but maybe more people on the political right tend towards perfectionism, and maybe more people on the political left tend toward that chaos, and maybe in life it's just about finding the balance between those two things. But I'm going to give that some thought, Shauna. That's a really interesting question, and I appreciate you asking it. Well, that's what I said. I actually think that people who tend towards OCD are just more likely to be on the right. Well, again, it could be just an inclination of like, I do think there's something to be said for the fact that people on the right tend to have a much more rigid mindset, which it makes them difficult to see other perspectives. It makes them difficult to see anything outside of black and white thinking. Like everything in its place. Everything has a place. Everything goes in its place. There is right and wrong. There is male and female. There is no changing any of it. I can't see outside of this. I can't even consider it like in a different opinion because no, you are wrong. I am right. I'm literally on the right. You are wrong. I am right. So I can absolutely see how that would play into, an OCD type of mentality. Whereas I think that people on the left tend to be much more creative in how they see the world. This is why the right sucks at art. The right is never going to be good at art until they start to embrace more chaos in their life. The right sucks at art. The right sucks at culture because the left tends to be much more outside the box thinkers, more creative thinkers, much more flexible mindset. They can look at things in different ways. Now, those ways aren't always good. I'm not making a comment on the quality of it, but I think that the left tends to create better art and is inclined to take over, media, entertainment, things like that, because they have a less rigid mindset about things. For better or worse.
And broaden it, diversify it. Typically, programs who have eliminated those test scores, and this is going to be an ongoing trend because the research, again, indicates that that's the direction that we should be moving.
Mm-hmm.
Columbia just eliminated the SAT.
Change where folks have been doing the same thing for many decades, as is the case in academia.
Right.
They will poke holes in the scientific data that you present to them. They will find a way to poke holes in the data because the data doesn't align with the narrative that they have been subscribing to for so many decades. And usually it's on the basis that they took those tests, right? And they followed a certain procedure. And now, because they performed well on those tests, because of the advantages, usually socioeconomic advantages that they had,
mm-hmm.
they will presume those tests to be effective. And they don't want to hear that they are no longer considered effective and that we might do something different to create better outcomes. And there is there's a bit of self-interest in the sense that if academic departments were operating with the awareness that in fact they are governed by equal opportunity laws,
mm-hmm.
that in fact they do have to not violate Title IX and other laws that apply to higher education, apply to women and minorities, when they operate with an increased awareness about the legal aspect of this process, they're going to save themselves from liability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of self-interest there. Also, many labs, particularly science labs that receive federal grant funding, NSF, NIH funding, they are overseen, at least in theory, by the EEOC. It's expected that when you receive federal grant funding, you will abide by equal opportunity laws, but that is not happening. And in fact, students very often come out of the woodwork to share off the record their experiences with racism and sexism.
Wow.
I don't frequently have to probe about that because when I come into a place and it's understood that I'm there to create change,
mm-hmm.
people who are aware of the need for change do come to me and do share those experiences. I had, postdocs, for example, who were no longer in fear of, at risk of having their degrees potentially be put at risk for
mm-hmm.
speaking, off the record about their experiences. And typically it is, again, women and people of color who talk about the need to box up their identities. If we're talking about a PhD program, that's 6 years of boxing up your identity to get through. And no person should ever have to do that. We should create more welcoming spaces. So one way.
Why do they have to box up their identity?
Representation of missing demographics. I mean, absolute missing demographics. And I'm not.
Who's forcing them to box up their identity? What policies?
With 147 PhD students and not one Black student.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was probably in Western Massachusetts, right? Chandra.
By the way, I do not consider this
guys, I hate to break it to you, but Western Massachusetts is like very white. And the University of Massachusetts, and I say this literally knowing someone in a diversity position at the University of Massachusetts. I really do in real life. I was this close to red pilling her. I was so fucking close to red pilling this person. I almost red pilled one of the diversity directors at the University of Massachusetts. Very white school. And so it is not like out of the realm of possibility that the only people in a PhD program at the University of Massachusetts are going to be white. And I'm not saying that's correct. I'm not saying that people should be kept out because of their skin color. I do think there are just demographic realities to face. New Hampshire is like 93% white. You're going to walk into most places in New Hampshire and only be around white people. That's not to say that everyone of every color isn't welcome. It's not to say they'd be treated weirdly, but there are simply just demographic realities to face.
Accomplishment, but in the short time that I was at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, I was able to
see, told you, UMass. I knew she was talking about that. I'm about 10 minutes behind. Chandra didn't have a great relationship with her mom. She spent some time in foster care, if I remember right. Yeah, Chandra has a lot of issues around her mother. I also know, and this is a sad thing, I'm not saying this to own Chandra or anything, her mother was murdered in Jamaica. I know that because she's very public about it on her copious amount of Substack notes. So, and that's a tragedy, okay? Chandra's mother was murdered in Jamaica. Chandra has a lot of feelings about that. Chandra also apparently spent time in foster care, according to Darkus here. So, yeah, Chandra has mommy issues. She does, and it's sad. That doesn't make her less crazy, but it is sad, and Chandra should really go to therapy and work out all of her mommy issues, and I'm sure all of us would be very supportive in her doing that.
Recruit one Black student. And so now they're no longer at 0. And that is not a win. We can do better. We must do better.
Right.
But I do think that at this point, I'm considering pivoting away from higher education. I think academia is very out of touch, frankly, with what's happening in the real world. And especially right now, I do appreciate science, and I appreciate research, and I appreciate so much about what comes from public research universities in particular. But I can no longer make myself vulnerable for the kind of work that I intend to do, and I intend to spend the rest of my life doing. So I want to go where my skills and experience and can be put to good use. And so I had an exciting opportunity. Someone reached out about an opportunity that was really right up my alley, and it tapped into my greater purpose.
What are you doing,
I think
Chandra?
we should all be doing is tapping into our greater purpose.
What would that opportunity be?
I hope to have a conversation with this person soon.
Not materialized yet.
I'll maybe have more information to share.
Still unemployed.
Good. I'll be wishing the best for you. You certainly deserve it, especially people who are, caring and giving, and you certainly are all of those things. So I just want to get to, I guess, the core of where all that comes from.
Thank you.
Just start with your grandfather and the values that he really just instilled and passed down, or is it generational, or is it something
that's an anxiety thing, mom of cats,
makes you this way?
Yeah, I think it's generational, but I would not rule out that there may be something deep down right in the DNA that is part of our nature. If we're primarily educators, humanitarians, civil rights activists, and so we lean in that.
Chandra thinks that being an activist is genetic. Okay.
That direction, and of course those were our influences.
Yeah.
I would say that I had a very unique experience. Also, I'll highlight this. My mother took me to, I posted about this recently. My mother took me to St. Croix as a young child. I was educated by Black teachers, all Black teachers. I was around all Black children, and I didn't know any different, not at the time.
Right.
I have photos from that experience, and I believe that it was life-changing. When you hear about people like Tim Weiss who do anti-racism work, he shares often his experience of being a minority child in an all Black lab school at the University of Tennessee, I believe it was.
Right.
So you hear about anti-racism folks, and many of them have these unique experiences, these unique insights. I'm not saying that people can't come to this from another direction, but I certainly was very fortunate to have life experiences, including seeing, Black people in very dignified roles. I saw photos on the wall of my grandfather standing next to Haile Selassie. I understood from an early age that Black was so much more than what we see in mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that's an advantage, right? To be able to see the fullness, the richness of the African diaspora experience, to understand that that Black people and white people have collaborated over the course of history,
Mm-hmm.
that there are some shared experiences that we can draw on. And mostly though, I would say, having been raised around a lot of Black people, friends of my mother's, friends of my grandfather's, I did create a certain comfort in speaking with Black people that I think that is lacking for some white people who have not had a similar experience. And I don't say that.
Let me see another super chat from Shauna. Again, thank you, Shauna. Why don't you think activism could be genetic? Politics is highly inheritable from what I understand. I don't think activism is genetic. Activism is a behavior. You can choose to engage in activism or not engage in activism. And I think that activism is learned behavior based on the environment that you're brought up in, your influences, things like that. It's like, that's kind of like what saying, like, why can't playing video games really well be genetic? Well, I mean, I guess maybe dexterity could be genetic, but the behavior of actually playing the video games, of actually, like, that's going to be more indicative. You can also say maybe knitting is genetic. Again, dexterity. I'm extremely dexterous, and that's why I think I'm a really good knitter. Or did I develop that over time just by forcing myself to knit so much until I got really good at it? But it's like, if I'm not showing up and actually doing it, then it's not going to develop. So I think there's a difference between, like, people can have innate gifts for things, but I think how I would see Chandra in terms of like activism being so-called genetic, it's more like, is Chandra an introvert or an extrovert? Is Chandra really good at going out and talking to people, or does Chandra like not like social interaction? If you don't like social interaction, you're probably going to be a really shitty activist because you're not going to be able to get people on your team, stuff like that. So maybe more related to like natural communication style, which also has a nurture aspect to it. Like, it's not just nature. Also, it's like how you're brought up, how you learn to communicate, stuff like that. So no, I don't think, and I don't think politics is genetic either. I think that's a matter of nurture and influences and things like that. So you might have like a conservative household that you're born into, but just because your parents are conservative doesn't mean you're going to be conservative. In fact, a lot of conservative parents are starting to find out that their little darlings were nurtured into being leftists in school starting in kindergarten. So that's what I think. I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
That it's some kind of a superiority complex in any way.
Yeah, what it is.
You have to get practice of that, and
right.
You have to not fear that you will step in it because maybe you have some blind spots, right? That you haven't worked out, or you're there for the learning experience. So, but I will say there is a fear on the part of some white people to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, even if they are well intended. So what they will do sometimes is just avoid the conversation altogether. It's so much easier, right? Except that that's not easier in the long run. So I would like to be a model for communication between white people and Black people, particularly between white women and Black women. I think that's a very powerful collaboration that we have not seen enough of. So I hope to be a model for that. And this upcoming podcast that I hope to do with Stevie in January will also provide, hopefully, an innovative platform to
tell me Chandra has her own podcast.
Model what it is.
Please tell me Chandra has a podcast.
Speak to people who have a different life experience than you.
Oh, man.
You need to humble yourself and learn. And that's really, for white people, that's really what it is about, mostly, is humbling yourself and listening. And you don't have to get it right all the time. When people see an authenticity in what you're saying and what you're trying to do, they will give you all kinds of grace.
Yes.
I mean, I've stepped in it. I have stepped in it, and I'm, you know.
Are you guys noticing in this? We are now half an hour into this episode, and thank God we only have 10 minutes left, but don't worry, we have a couple more episodes to watch after this. Is anyone noticing that Chandra has literally said nothing of substance? I mean, she really hasn't. She talked about herself a good bit. And I guess maybe that's part of the point of this, is talking about herself. But Chandra has said nothing of substance in terms of like what she does to help people communicate, what she does to be actively anti-racist and anti-Black racism, and you know, how she's showing up in the world, how she's doing her alleged activism. Like, she has said nothing. It's all constant word salad. There is nothing there. There's no meat to anything that she said. But we still have 10 minutes. Who knows?
Fairly evolved on some of these issues. So it is possible to have blind spots. I do say to Black people, I will never be Black, and I will never have that lived experience. But what I can do is listen to you, try to learn from you, understand you, and collaborate with you around topics that will make our lives, our collective lives, better. Because there's a lot of ways in which, you know, a lot of ways in which white people are missing out, because Black people have enriched my life so. And I don't say that to be pandering in any kind of way. I say that truly because I think about specific Black people who came into my life, who taught me, like my US history teacher in 10th grade, who was a Black man with a PhD. And without him, there's no way I would be the person that I am today. To have learned US history through the lens of a Black man with a PhD is a unique experience, and I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah, that is really important, what you're saying about our ability to interact with people that are different from ourselves. To have those exposures from a young age is so important. I think it's instructive for the viewers who'll be watching this to know, you know, if it's too late for them, it's not too late for their children or their grandchildren to truly ingratiate themselves in a community that they're not familiar with, right? To just get outside of your comfort zones, have the conversations, connect with people that are not like yourself in order to transform our society. So what are you doing now, Chandra, in that regard? Like in your personal life, in your professional life, do you have these connections with people of different ethnicities and races now?
Yeah, you know, I will say that the pandemic is making it a little isolating. I am a single mother of 2 teenagers, so I am quite busy even without a job at this time. Really trying to pour myself into creating healthy young white boys who will soon be men to go out into the world and hopefully carry forth the family legacy on some level within the context that they're comfortable doing so. I don't get a whole lot of interaction except for opportunities like this with other adults. So this is a pleasure. LinkedIn has been incredibly healing.
Chandra doesn't interact with other adults outside of being on a podcast every now and again. Wow. Hi, Autumn. Welcome. I stream every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and on Saturdays at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. Monday through Friday, we do just kind of a general show. Fridays, we do happy hour, which is a little bit of a special, like, routine thing. But I cover news, culture war stuff, all that sort of stuff. On Saturdays, at 6 p.m., we do Socialism Saturday. Every once in a while, I do late night streams too if stuff is going on or if there's stuff I want to talk about. But my general streaming schedule that you can almost always find, unless I have something else going on, is Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and then Saturdays at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. And thank you for asking.
For me, creating a sense of community. I have little family remaining. My mother passed away 2 years ago, and that left a huge hole in the family. So I'm still healing from that and trying to create new connections, new opportunities, and lending this, you know, this podcast type of format to my network, because really,
oh, holy shit, I just got a notification. This is not related to the stream. ABC refused to air RFK's comments on vaccines. Has anyone heard this? I just got a notification from the Epic Times in my email. Let me see. I will the headline is ABC refuses to air RFK Jr.'s comments about COVID-19 vaccines. Huh. It kind of seems like they're censoring a Democrat presidential candidate. Isn't that interesting for a broadcast like channel? Wow.
It's not going to be Chandra show at all. We're driving a different format. We are letting guests decide the topic and letting them say what?
What will be the name of your podcast?
Ooh, so we're still working on that one. So if anyone has any ideas, I'm open. Okay. Yes. Would love some suggestions.
I would love to amplify that if at all possible. So when you know the name, let me know and I will certainly do my part.
Sure.
I think it's important that women support women. I think it's important that Black women support white women and vice versa. And of course, you're a mother, so I get it. I've got 2 kids myself, and I understand the challenges of trying to put yourself.
Is Kino here? Kino, are you in the chat? I thought that I think everything you sent me looks good, Kino. If you're in the chat, it looks so great, and I appreciate it. I'll email him back if he's not still here.
Out there, start your career, make those connections, and at the same time taking care of your kids. I'm in exactly the same position. So if we can help one another, that's certainly what I would love to do. But before you go, Chandra, I just want to give the viewers your best solution in which to move forward and advance this movement for social justice. And I also want to talk a little bit about
He's here. What you sent me for a pose looks awesome. It looks really good. I just looked at it. Thank you so much.
LinkedIn and what you mentioned it, right? What it meant to you to make those connections through the platform, but what did it mean for them to take that away from you for a brief time and then have you come back?
Yeah, what'd you do to get banned, Chandra?
So first of all, I do have lots of ideas, some of which I got from my grandfather about how to create community across cultures. Food is one way.
Yeah.
We might even try sharing a meal, via Zoom. If the person is from another country, maybe trying a recipe and, enjoying a meal together, even from a distance. Go to Black church. I mean, I've lived in the South for 20 years. And honestly, some of my most meaningful and joyous experiences were had in Black church. But be prepared to carve out a full day for that, white people. So
it's so funny.
Yeah. But I mean, I have lots of ideas.
Well, hang on. So Autumn says she was banned for trigonometry for speed. I don't know what you did to do to get banned from trigonometry, but I will tell everyone, if you're new to my channel, I do have 2 rules that I do ask everyone follow. Number 1, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people in the chat. And this also goes for the comments section too, by the way, because I've been banning a lot of people in the comments who are obviously Candace Owens fans and not happy that I'm pointing out that Candace Owens is a raging narcissist. But don't be, I'm allowed to be a dick. This is my house. But you can't be a dick, and you can't be a dick to either to me or to people in the chat, because I want to keep the environment nice. Number 2, no whining. If you're whining and complaining about everything, I just can't take it. It is an annoyance thing, and you'll get banned for that too. But if you're not being a dick and you're not whining, then you're going to be pretty safe, and that's all it is.
Food, music is an incredible unifier. So I did early in the quarantine, I tried to share my mother's extensive album collection from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Predominantly Black music.
Well, I do curse extensively.
Was a white child growing up in Ethiopia and Liberia. So she also had a comfort with Black people from an early age and saw Black people at all levels. in society. And I think that was really important. We should not be so one-dimensional. Know people are a monolith. Get to know Black people across the diaspora.
Yes.
FAMU, for example, where I recruited, was one place that I really got to see the full diaspora. And it was quite a different type of experience than being on a predominantly white campus, I will say. But as time goes on, I mean, there are any number of ways to build community, and we can get really creative about it, but music and food are a great place to start. Spirituality, people connect, in all sorts of ways. I do remember, shout out to Sean Bowers, because he's one that I connected with, a white man who's been working for writing for a Black publication over many decades. And he said basketball for him was how he got to know Black people and feel really comfortable. And after a while, when they trusted him enough, they allowed him in more and more. And I would say, when that trust builds and you really get to know people on a deeper level, that's where the sweet spot is. That's where the meaningful work really is.
For sure. So talk to me about, I guess, your next steps. And again,
she views getting to know people and forming friendships with people as a chance to do deeper work. Did anyone just catch that? Where she was like, it went from like, let's hang out and play basketball and like get to know each other and have fun and have a good time, to once you get to know each other, you can really get in there and to do deeper work. It's like, they're supposed to be your friends, Chandra. They're quite literally just supposed to be your friends. They're not supposed to be a project. They're not supposed to be a chance for you to get off on your level of anti-racism as a guilty white lady. Like, they're supposed to be your friends. Why are you doing deep work on your friendships? That makes no sense.
And with LinkedIn, what change means for you now that you're back?
Yeah, so actually, LinkedIn has a bad habit of playing both sides. They don't want to take a stand. They're very neutral. They're very neutral in one sense.
What did you do to get banned, Chandra?
They seem to...
I'm going to ask her on Substack notes and be like, Chandra, why'd you get banned?
I guess I shouldn't call it neutrality, actually. I should say
she'll answer too.
They're they have a both sides scenario going on, and this was pre-election that they banned me. So I don't know if it's because things heated up so much. I do address harassers and abusers online.
That's what it was.
And I'm not going to be nice about it. I would say
Chandra was being her usual self on LinkedIn, and she was her usual self so much that they decided that they didn't want her on the platform anymore. Like, I'm calling out harassers, which in Chandra's case, calling out a harasser could literally be code for I saw a white man and I couldn't handle it. I'm not joking about that.
There is one anti-racism person who I really admire and respect in terms of a white person. I channel a little bit of Jane Elliott. Jane Elliott inspires me greatly because she does not hold back. And sometimes you really just have to tell it like it is. There is a value in telling the truth, and there's freedom in telling the truth.
I love this, Benjamin.
At my own risk, I will address white men who bring racism and sexism. I will, in fact, address Black men who bring sexism as well. Because I'm not here to pander. I'm just here to tell the truth, and to help people not be racist and sexist. I mean, really, it's just that simple, as to try to, create the kind of world that I hope to live in, where in fact my own white sons do not have an advantage for their whiteness and their maleness, because I believe very strongly that my kids want to compete fairly. My kids didn't ask to be born into a world that was unequitable. They in fact don't like the some of the shame, frankly, that comes with that, and feeling like, geez, am I an oppressor?
I like that Chandra is admitting that she's making her children feel guilty about being born white. I think she's talking about her own kids. That's what it sounds like to me. So Chandra is going out of her way to make her children feel guilty about being born white. And then she's like, and it's just too bad because, they feel so guilty about it. Why do they feel guilty about it, Chandra? Someone taught that. Oh, she has 2 boys. Oh, good. I hope that Chandra is beating the toxic white male, cisgender, straight, heteronormative masculinity. I bet she's beating that toxic masculinity right out of her sons like every single day of their lives. Those poor kids.
Because of the color of my skin, because of my gender, am I an oppressor? Does that make me an oppressor off the bat? So it's a very delicate conversation. In some ways, a white mother has to have with her white sons, because you don't want to create shame.
Yeah.
There's no shame. I tell them all the time, this is a no shame zone. Just understand though, and I know you didn't ask for it, but this is the world you live in. And because this is the world you live in, I want you to be aware. And I want you to.
So I'm not telling you to be ashamed of being white, but just be aware that because you are white, you have special privileges that those black kids that you really like, they don't have them. They don't have them. And I'm not telling you that you should feel ashamed about who you are, but just know that you have it better than other people. You're not teaching them to be ashamed? Okay.
First, subscribe to the Hippocratic Oath, which is do no harm. Let's start with that. Do no harm.
Right.
Okay. And then we can build off of that. So it's an interesting age. They're 13 and 16. I believe that they are more aware because of some of the conversations that we're having. All I can hope is that they, carry forward some of the ideas, even though they're not personally affected by racism and sexism. And I will say that is a roadblock.
Yeah.
It's definitely a challenge because when someone is not personally affected, their ability to empathize really is hindered.
Are you suggesting, Chandra, that it would be easier for you if your kids were affected by racism and sexism? Because it kind of sounds like you're making them feel guilty for their race earlier. And now you're saying that it really is inconvenient that my white boys are not impacted by racism and sexism, because if they were impacted by racism and sexism, that would make it much easier for me to make them good little anti-racist allies. It almost seems like Chandra is inflicting racism and sexism on her own children from their pretty obviously, this is just an opinion. This could be wrong. I could be wrong. I'm stating an opinion. But it is my opinion that Chandra has some sort of personality disorder. I don't exactly know which one. It could be a combination of several. But it seems to me like she's intentionally, maybe unconsciously, inflicting racism and sexism on her own kids in order to give them the feeling of racism and sexism.
Actually see, right? Like it's hard for people who aren't personally affected to even recognize what it might look like. And that's where the blinders come in, and that's where the inappropriate behaviors come in. But it's interesting, like you sound like you're doing a phenomenal parenting job. And it's really interesting because
phenomenal,
our
Chandra.
Kids
very well done.
Up at a time where not only do we have this movement for social justice, but you've got Me Too, the Me Too movement at the same time. And you've got boys. I've got a boy.
I mean, I feel like since we started talking about like HD tutors content in the community, I feel like I'm seeing narcissists everywhere, and I'm really trying to check myself. I really am, because I don't think that everyone is a narcissist. I really don't. I think that the vast majority of people are not real narcissists. But I really feel like with a lot of the content, I'd like the narc thing is going off all the goddamn time, and like it's not like curses. I can see this now where I didn't see it before. But I don't think it's like everyone. I just think it's like, I just feel very strongly that we have to be really judicious before we call someone a narcissist. That's all. God.
Like, I've got my 7-year-old reading F is for feminism and and saying girl power, right? Like, it's really important that he understands, that girls can do everything. Like, we had a conversation this morning about God, right? And he says to me, we're talking about, of course, the birth of Jesus, because I'm Christian, and we're talking about Christmas is coming, and he says something about God being male. And I said, God's a woman, right? Just to hear what of course not, mommy. Like, how could God be a woman? Don't you read your Bible? And I had to chuckle, right? I said, well, how do you know that God's a man? He said, because he has a beard. I said, I've never seen an image of God. Have you? How do you know he's got a beard, right? So we have this whole dialogue. He's like, well, he's Jesus's parent, so he has to be a man. And I said, well, no, Jesus was born by a woman, so Mary could be God, right? Like, so I'm just opening his mind, right, to the possibilities, right? Because we, like, I want him to understand that there's an equitable society, and that we
see, Benjamin is correct, and I do agree with this. I think she sincerely thinks she's helping her kids. I agree with you. Chandra thinks that she is a gift that has been delivered to us by God. Very narcissistic, by the way, to feel like you're a gift that's been delivered to us by God, in order to grace the world with her brand of anti-racism. And I think that she thinks that she is raising her kids righteously in the name of justice and fairness. But it's really messed up. It is messed up. It is unhealthy. And they're going to grow up with a complex. And they're going to have mommy issues they need to work out. Oh, God, are Chandra's kids ever going to have mommy issues? Chandra is just passing all the mom. This is why it's important to get therapy, guys. And I'm saying this is a serious thing. I know I sound like I'm being sarcastic right now. And, I am to like a tiny extent. But this is why you need to go to therapy. This is why we all need to take the time and to put in the effort to working out our baggage that we received from our parents in therapy. Because if you don't work out your own baggage, you are going to pass your mommy and daddy issues right through you to your own kids. And that just seems a little irresponsible to me, if I'm honest about it. No shame in going to therapy. And it's far better. You got to find a good therapist. You can't find a woke therapist that's going to make you do all sorts of crazy things and reinforce complexes and all that. You can't find an anti-racist therapist. None of that. Ask them about their position on anti-racism when you interview them. See what they say. Don't find a woke one. But in general, if you can find a good therapist, it will prevent you from, or will allow you to work out your baggage so you don't force your own baggage onto your kids. Jen, thank you for the super chat. It's like the two words I hear the most lately, and that's probably because I'm chronically online, is narcissist and creep. I think the word narcissist is way overused. Significantly overused. But you got to call a spade a spade.
We have to be conscious of it. And I'm raising us conscious, even at 7, right? Like, I don't
never too early.
It's never too early.
I think that the research shows that by age 3, kids are aware of race differences. And around that time, or maybe not too long after that, sadly, they are also aware of the advantages of one race over the other.
Right.
And so teaching children to love themselves, and this goes for any race, because I can be sarcastic all day long and say that, like, the Proud Boys have mommy issues and, things that
that's projection, Chandra.
Meant to be provocative, quite frankly. I'm trying to start conversations. So, but really, you see these, how these men operate. And of course, they're not operating from self-love, and so I think that's really the key, is to, when we love ourselves, we treat others with more respect and love.
You know what?
And so
go ahead. Go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
So just really, you're doing the right thing. I mean, you're the way that you are empowering him to think outside the box, to love himself, but to also love others, all that we do as mothers to instill these values in our children. I believe strongly that it's going to pay off.
I hope you're right.
I think we're changing the world through our children. So
I agree with you, Chandra. On that note, bravo to you too. And I
thank
you so much for coming.
Thank God. Thank God. The first one is over. So how's everyone doing? We're not done yet. Don't go anywhere. We're going to watch another one. But we're going to take this super chat from the Philosophist first. I got a lot out of therapy, but you have to want to get something out of it. It takes work. Well, that's very true. If you go to therapy and you're doing it begrudgingly and you don't want to do it, or you're just screwing around, it's not going to work. But if you go in with an open mind and you allow people to help you, then it can work as long as you have the right therapist. All right. That's enough of Chandra. But guys, I do have a couple other episodes pulled up because that was a rather short happy hour, because we usually do much longer videos than that. And we're now going to move into our second episode, which is, I don't know who this woman is. I went purely based off of the titles. But now we're going to learn how to undo our internalized white supremacy from Sarah. And let's see if there's any description to it. Janelle chats with Sarah, who post George Floyd has begun to listen, who after George Floyd began to listen, learn, and take action. All right, guys, hang in there. Grab another beverage if you need one. I'm about halfway through this Imperial peanut butter stout that you guys made me drink earlier, and it is delicious, and I'm enjoying it. But it's also 8% alcohol, man. So I'm just nursing it, taking it slow, enjoying every sip. Let's keep going.
Welcome to another episode of White and Woke at Work. I'm Janelle Benjamin, your host, and I'm here today with Sarah Herman, a technical, I was going to say recruiter? No.
Account manager. I'm in sales. I'm a technical accountant. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry, Janelle.
From San Diego. Welcome to the show. How are you, Sarah?
I'm doing all right. It's great to be here. I'm a little nervous.
Not that Sarah bot.
This is going to be a piece of cake. I'm just going to ask everybody that's watching just to remember to hit the like button below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And here we go, Sarah. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Sarah. You are what did you just say? A technical, I keep saying recruiter. What's wrong? Account manager. A technical account manager.
It's kind of a weird title. Yeah, so it's a sales role for scientists, essentially. I sell preclinical, mostly research models into mostly academic accounts, but also, biotechs or anyone who's doing that kind of like preclinical, before it goes into humans research. So, it's a technical role, but it's a sales role essentially. But, yeah.
So
I have a degree in biology. I have a master's in bioscience business, and I worked for a long time in quality assurance. And then I just I wanted to do something that was a little bit more person to person than quality assurance. So I went into sales. It's been quite a journey. It's not easy all the time, but it's been fun.
What was your office environment like pre-COVID?
Well, I worked from home, so my office environment was sort of the same as what you see here. I was just kind of working from my computer and, maybe go to visit a client every once in a while.
So you wouldn't really see or hear about like the workplace challenges that are taking place for historically.
Not really.
No?
Not really. So not in this job. I mean, before I had a job at a huge genetic sequencing company in San Diego called Illumina. I'm sure anyone who's familiar with genome sequencing is familiar with Illumina. But I worked in the office there and also for a startup, and two very, very different communities.
So one of the things I want to make clear is that what we're seeing in this episode of Happy Hour is a little bit different than other episodes because she's not a true believer. Sarah, not a true believer. Sarah is like an average person who has been confused in the wake of the summer of 2020 that was told that this is what you need to do in order to be a good person. I can already tell she's not a true believer because of her language. It is very distinct. And so What we're seeing here is just like an average normal person that's been sucked into this ideology and is trying to navigate it. And so I want everyone to cut Sarah a little bit of a break. Chandra is a true believer. I don't care if we make fun of Chandra. But just, sometimes we get wrapped up in things and we don't really understand what is going on, but she's not a true believer, and I think that's going to become very clear.
Communities, and is certainly different than working by yourself and collaborating remotely with people. But to be honest, it really prepared me for this.
Yes,
kind of,
a useful, innocent Reagan.
remote
Exactly.
environment that we're in now.
How so? How did it prepare you?
I mean, I had to do it before. I got to see people every once in a while, but for the most part, it was just me and my computer and talking to people, on the phone, or we would do a video conference here and there. Obviously, it's become a lot more commonplace, which is just so great. I don't know. It's really helped me to connect with people that I don't think I would have normally. My family has a weekly Zoom call, and like we didn't talk weekly. I would see them twice a year, but
I love that.
now it's so great, right? Have you had anything like that where you're connected?
And I want to say too, this interviewer actually seems like a really nice lady. Okay, she's doing this woke thing, whatever, but she really does seem like a nice lady that's also might be a little bit of like a useful innocent. I don't get true believer vibes off of her. It's kind of like I see her as kind of like, do you guys remember when we did the school investigation in the Rochester, New York school district, and we thought it was going to be totally woke, and it turned out that their diversity department in the Rochester, New York school district was run entirely by Black women? And they weren't woke. They were actually doing the right things because they actually like legitimately cared about it. But they weren't woke. They weren't doing like the bad stuff. They were doing the okay stuff. And I kind of feel like it's the same thing with this lady. Like she seems like a nice lady. She doesn't seem like uber woke to me. She's just kind of like she's trying to exist in the world and she's doing her thing and she cares about uplifting Black people, which of course I think that that's fine. Like there's no like there's no problem with that. So you know what? Maybe this will be okay. Maybe it'll be an interesting interview to watch.
Might not have.
Honestly,
besides this, obviously.
Well, yeah, no, honestly, I think that, I mean, it's hard to say because COVID is like running rampant and it's deadly. But at the same time, it has given me such an opportunity to connect with people from all over the world that I would not normally have even met, people like yourself. So yeah. I absolutely love the fact that we're all forced to be at home, that we get to spend a lot more time with our families, and that we connect with people. Like I've had Zoom birthday parties, and I've had like milestone birthday parties for both my parents. My mom turned 65, my dad turned 70, and we did like massive parties over Zoom for both of them with all their friends from childhood. So it's been an amazing opportunity to connect. Yeah, that's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more, I guess, then about how you relate to what's happening in the world right now in terms of the social justice movement. When you've been indoors for a very long time, you don't have the kind of workplace contention and issues, or you haven't experienced it or seen it because of your environment. So how do you relate to what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, you probably found me on LinkedIn. That's where I've been sort of most active in sort of the anti-racist community. And I think like many people, I've been aware of racism for a very, very long time, but I hadn't been really aware, if you know what I mean. Being white, we're very insulated from any kind of racism. It's so easy to not to see it and maybe think about it, or to see it and not process it, or stuff like that. But this summer with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, we just it's been at the forefront, and there's nothing else to do. We can't go and like drown our sorrows. I think that maybe it wouldn't have been the same if it hadn't happened during COVID. So it's interesting, but that I had been exposed to these ideas previously, but it was really a wake-up call for me, and I think for a lot of other people. I've heard that on this podcast or video series or interviews with other people, but it showed me that I'm not okay with the way that things are, and I don't want to just sit on my hands and not do anything, because that makes me part of the problem.
So yeah, useful innocent for sure.
You are able to do, because we're all shut in. not to diminish it by any means, because there's a million things you can do. I, for one, have started my own consulting business. But what are some of you are taking action to do?
Yeah, I mean, so it's slow, right? Like I'm not going out and, you know, shaking people and changing their minds or anything. It's a very slow process, and I think for a lot of white people, it needs to start with us educating ourselves. You know, we can't come and do any of this work without the baseline knowledge of what Black people are telling us. You know, if I come and I try to like steamroll with my white ideas, that's not going to do any good, and that's not what I want to do. So it's been,
if I come to steamroll with my white ideas. Wow. Is this Christy? If this is Christy, then I did get your email. If this is not Christy, you're going to need to tell me who you are. I haven't had a chance to do it yet if it's Christy. I just haven't had time yet, but
really listening to Black voices.
Oh, not Christy. Then you're going to have to tell me what name is on the email, because I don't recall seeing an email from this screen name. But you can always email me at activelyunwoke@gmail.com. I don't think I saw that come through, no. So I'll put the email in the chat. You can always email me at activelyunwoke@gmail.com. You can send documents to activelyunwoke@gmail.com. You can send me whistleblower stuff. I will always protect your identity. That is the very best way to get in touch, and I appreciate it.
As opposed to listening to respond, I think, you know, and I'm sure a lot of other white people have
not you, Kino. We don't need you right now.
They listen and they don't like what they hear, and it's so easy to, you know, listen, not like what you hear, and then reject it and just stop listening, and that's not good either. You know, we hear things about you know, white fragility. That's something that, you know, really resonates with me. I feel that, you know, and recently I'm still learning. I have to continuously learn.
White fragility, the Church of Robin.
This concept of white woman tears being weaponized against Black people was completely new to me, and just a horrifying thing, you know.
It's new to you, Sarah, because Robin DiAngelo made it up. For those who don't know what she's talking about Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility, which, if we time travel back a couple of years, it was everyone had to read White Fragility in 2020, and I read White Fragility for all of you. I read White Fragility so that you did not have to. You can go back. The video's still on my channel. I descended into a state of madness because I read all of White Fragility in like a day and a half. I descended into a state of madness in my reading of White Fragility. I really did. You can see it in the video I did. I had no idea what was going on. There is an entire chapter in the book White Fragility that is called White Women's Tears. Oh, I just got your email, Zaxton. I got it. So she has a whole chapter called White Women's Tears. And the basis of that chapter is essentially that when white liberal women, white progressive women, she's not even talking about all white women. The group that Robin DiAngelo hates more than anyone else are actually white liberal women and white progressive women, who she says are actually the most racist. And so Robin says that white women's tears are any time that a white liberal or progressive woman wants to do doesn't want to do anti-racist work, doesn't want to admit that they're racist. If Robin goes into an organization and calls Sarah a racist, Sarah is going to be prone to cry because she doesn't want to be called a racist. And when Sarah cries because Robin DiAngelo has called her a racist, Robin says that is Sarah weaponizing her white woman's tears in order to be able to exercise her white women's privilege and to be able to not do the work of addressing her inherent racism. Yes, Robin DiAngelo is white. Robin DiAngelo is very white. She is a piece of work that was. She went away for a little while. Robin has recently reemerged. Yay for all of us. James Jones, an appreciation of your having read White Fragility. Man, you know what I should do? I should really re-upload that video to the channel so my whole new audience can appreciate the work and torment that I endured in order to read White Fragility for all of you. You're welcome. Autumn, did you used to listen to emo back in the day? I still listen to emo, Autumn. Okay. And who are my faves? I have 30 Seconds to Mars tattooed on my arm. I saw 30 Seconds to Mars way before they were really big and famous. The first time I saw them was at a club in Northampton, Massachusetts, in which there were maybe like less than 100 people in the room. And they were actually the opening act for Chevelle and another band that I forget. And so I love 30 Seconds to Mars. I mean, My Chemical Romance, you can't go wrong with that. Like, I mean, basically my whole playlist, Placebo, Placebo, I don't know if it's really emo. I mean, they kind of are emo. I'm actually going to see Placebo. I'm really excited about this. On Sunday, I'm going to see Placebo in Boston. And I have like the old people like elevated kind of like on the balcony with the private bar seats. I'm not being like in general admission anymore. I'm too old for that shit. But I love Placebo. Placebo is one of my favorite bands. AFI, Davey Havoc. Come on. I know he's really a leftist, but it's okay. So yeah, I still listen to emo to this day. I do.
Just so many people, everyone in that thread was like, yes, I've experienced that. So learning, first of all, is important, I think, to me. But as far as action goes, you know, beyond that, it's, as a white person, I think we have this power that, first of all, people aren't racist to us, so we don't have any of that latent exhaustion that I can only imagine. You know, it's exhausting sometimes to just see it, even if it's not directed at us.
Yeah, early AFI is better than later AFI, white for sure.
Have this power of being white, not being exhausted by racism already, and also being able to
for sure. Tinge says, any chance you'll be coming to Louder Than Life Festival in September? I don't know what that is, Tinge. Let me know what it is. I mean, there is a socialist conference that I want to go to in September. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see if it overlaps. Socialism's going to take priority over basically everything else. I love Placebo's cover of Running Up That Hill. I was just listening to that earlier, Jen. It's a great. I was listening to all my Placebo music earlier because I've got a whole big Placebo playlist just to get ready for the concert. But no, that's a great song. Like, Placebo is so effing good. Like, all of their albums are good. Like, even like, oh, I love them so much. If you never listened to Placebo before, check them out. And don't just listen to the famous stuff. Listen to like other stuff too, because there's so much good music. Anyway.
To other white people, you know,
I'll have to look into it, Tinge.
Maybe it's best if Black people do that because they have those personal experiences, but it's not really fair, I think, to ask Black people to go have a civil conversation with a Nazi to like
probably not on stream, but I'll do it later.
The error of their ways in a patient and kind and empathetic way, and they might be more likely to listen if it's coming from a white person. You know, they don't feel as attacked maybe, or they feel like the person might understand them a little bit better. And I that's the kind of work that I want to do. It's so easy to see racism and like lash out and hate those people, but that's not how my mind was changed. You know, I haven't always been this person. You know, I didn't understand what like a microaggression was or any of that stuff, you know, and it took a lot of patient effort with me to sort of get me to long-term come around to someone who's more interested in listening than shutting my ears, if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense.
No, she's not a true believer. She's a useful
because
innocent.
you
She's not too
mentioned,
far
not
gone.
having to go and educate the Nazis, but I feel like,
Believe me, like she's saying the words, but you can tell she's not. She's like 2 steps into this ideology. She's very, very new at this ideology. She's just repeating back what's been said to her.
for the most part, we spend our time not dealing with Nazis in society. Like, I don't believe like the majority of white people are just walking around as Nazis, right? Like the majority are just people like yourself who perhaps they just didn't know what they didn't know. It's different when you're in racialized skin. And so you have these experiences that educate you, right? It's like a lifelong process that people are just now waking up to. So, it can't be this like overnight transformation, this, aha, I get it. And, now I know exactly all about it. So there's definitely a lot of learning and unlearning that has to be done. So I commend you for doing that. That is awesome. And then, just taking that, like you said, and I do believe that there's a lot of benefit in other white people to share and to communicate and to talk, because again, I shouldn't have an experience where I'm gaslit, or my experiences are minimized or discounted because, oh no, you're just playing the race card. Like those interactions are like, here we go again, they're harmful. I find myself getting worked up, angry, yelling, blah blah blah. I try to be patient, or sometimes I just leave them. I don't address them at all because I'm like, this is energy sucking. So if you can have those conversations with people that look like you, and that's part of the reason I did this show, to have people who can see themselves in a variety of white faces, from old to young, and male and female, and everything in between. We've got a transgender guest, right? I just want everybody to be able to see themselves reflected and say, aha, I can do this, right? If they can learn and interact and wake up, I can as well. So I commend you for doing that. Tell me a little bit, I guess, then about your upbringing, like your family life, and are any of them like woke or waking up, or the things what are they doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so incredibly lucky. I grew up in the Bay Area, so very diverse, but not a lot of Black people. So it was sort of an interesting, we didn't really think about anti-Black racism. Maybe we thought about like racism against Latinos or Latinas or some stuff like that. That we were exposed to some of that, but not necessarily anti-Black racism. But my dad was the guy who would wave his vote sign, or he sometimes would stand on a corner with a sign that just said peace. Like, just, both of my parents were just incredibly strong, and they understood that racism is bad and always taught us those things. But even growing up in the Bay Area and with parents that are smart and kind and caring, I still was molded by white supremacy. I think that's something that, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in America, and probably elsewhere, I can't really speak to overseas, but it's just built into our culture.
Yeah.
It's something that you can't.
She is Robin DiAngelo's good little student. She is repeating Robin DiAngelo almost word for word. Robin DiAngelo says in her book, she says, I was steeped in racism like before I took my first breath. She literally thought that she was a racist in the womb. God.
Necessarily escape, and it's something that we really have to combat with our kids.
Yes, they are
on,
sheltered liberal white girls. That's what exactly.
My church did a good job. We had a lot of diversity there. I was raised as a Unitarian Universalist, and it's maybe a little bit of a different church. We had a lot of people of different races, different religions, all sort of coming together, and they were all accepted. So, but even with all of those great inputs, I was still a victim of the system of white supremacy and internalized a lot of it. And I think that's important to sort of recognize as we start doing this work, is that, no matter who you are, you have these internal biases and you have to address them. Otherwise they'll, kind of rule your life. But yeah, no, my parents were great. My grandparents, my grandpa worked for the CDC in Atlanta, and they remember
that explains a lot
back when there was.
Thank you, Anik. I appreciate it.
So like this history isn't that old. Even the like really gross KKK, Klansmen burning crosses on Stone Mountain. That's not that old. Like, that's not that long ago. We've come far, but we have a long way to go still. And yeah, I don't know. Hope that answers your question.
No, it does. It absolutely does. I'm just curious because you raised, some internalization of white supremacy. Like, what are some of the ways that you recognize now what you might have internalized?
Yes, how are you racist? Confess your sins.
Here's an example
there's a religious, and we saw this a lot in 2020 for people who weren't paying attention. Let me ask the question: is there anyone that's watching today that wasn't paying attention during the riots of the summer of 2020, the summer of love, if you will? Because we saw this a lot during the summer of 2020, and they almost treated these it's ritualistic in what they're doing. She's having to go to church and confess her sins as a white lady. And there was in 2020 there was kissing, there was bending down and kneeling before people, there was kissing people's feet, there was all sorts of like, there was washing people, there was all sorts of like religious like shenanigans in regards to proving your anti-racist bona fides, to prove that you are redeeming yourself for your the innate sin of being born white. And we're seeing this play out. That's what this is. This is a confession.
Just so gross and embarrassing from early in my childhood. I remember,
and by the way, they're doing this shit in schools now. This is a struggle session. It's a relatively nice struggle session, but they're doing this shit in schools now.
We were getting a doll or something. I was very, very little, and we're picking out a doll, and there was a dark Cabbage Patch Kid doll or something that mom was trying to buy for me, and I was like, oh no, I don't want that one. She's not pretty because she's not pink.
Okay.
And just it's so painful to say and think back to, and that's not something that my mom taught me. I mean, she was obviously horrified. But I had picked that up somewhere, pink equals pretty. And maybe it's because all the models are white, or, all the movie stars that I was shown were white. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we can talk about how representation matters, but, that was something that was taught to me sort of subconsciously. And I parroted like it was a fact.
Yeah.
And, I think that sort of influences a lot of things in my life that I'm not even aware of.
Don't beat yourself up. That happens to everyone the world over. There have been studies. I don't know if you've heard of something called doll test. But after we go take a look at it on YouTube. Everyone can go the doll test. It's been done with children 4 years old and I think below, maybe 3 or 4 years old, the world over, and children of all races. And they present dolls to them, black and white dolls, and they ask children invariably, which doll is pretty, which doll is smart, which doll do you love, which doll is kind and nice and good. And they always pick the white doll for the pretty, nice, kind, good doll, and the black doll is the doll that's they just don't like and they don't want to play with. So that it happens to kids even who are also racialized. So don't beat yourself up. We've all internalized this system of white supremacy, and I always tell that to even my clients that are coming to work with me that.
Can I tell you guys something that has nothing to do with this presentation? So towards little later on in happy hours on Fridays, I tend to troll around Twitter a little bit. I'm still listening. I'm still like stealthy like a fox. But I was just trolling around Twitter a little bit. And I have discovered that someone has made a Twitter thread of 79 times in which I was, quote unquote, exposed as a grifter, which basically means that they found 79 things that I said on Twitter or on YouTube that hurt their fragile sensibilities that they didn't like. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being such an unhinged lunatic that you put that much effort into creating a Twitter thread of 79 times Carlin's been exposed as a grifter? They're uppity today because they're realizing that their little smear campaign that they really tried to do for the last year and a half has like just failed dramatically. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like how long does it take to put together a Twitter thread like that? Like I so live in these people's heads. They think about me all the time. They dream about me. They talk about me all the time. They are obsessed. They are my biggest fans. Can you imagine? Like, it's a Friday, man. It's a Friday. You guys could go out and do any. They're probably watching right now. Everyone wave. Hi. Hi. It's a Friday. You can go out and do something with your life, man. You don't need to obsess about me all day, every day. I promise. I'm actually not that interesting. Jen, thank you for the super chat. Alongside a struggle session, it also comes off like survivor's guilt or variation of. I think that's actually a really good point, Jen, and that's something I wasn't thinking about earlier. So thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, it's almost like I have to make up for the fact that I was born white. I just like I made it, and everyone else is like is dying, but I made it out white, and so I have to. It really is. It's very very weird. Anyway, back to the show. I know. I'm such a grifter. Oh my god. I'm such a grifter. Oh my god. I can't help myself. Jesus Christ.
This isn't about, white people learning and undoing. It's really about everybody, right? Because we're all part of these systems that oppress and disenfranchise and tell us what's good and evil, and it's in our media, it's in our movies, it's in our books, it's in everything that we've ever known. So yeah, how can we go ahead,
sorry, go ahead.
How can we now undo
just let the black woman go first?
It can't be done overnight. Like I was just gonna say, it has to be like a slow systemic process to undo all of these things. What were you gonna say?
That's exactly
undo
what
all
I was
of what
say.
things?
Like, what now do we do? Like, what are the actions that we take? And I think that representation is really important. Every once in a while I'll see some
oh my
posts
god, this
on
goddamn
LinkedIn
phone
about celebrating like the first black woman to do this, and of course like enter in all these.
Can I just say that when I first started doing YouTube and I didn't know what I was doing, I would have my phone sitting on my desk next to me, and oftentimes while I was making a video, the phone would start vibrating, and then I would get people complaining on the video saying, "Carlin, turn off your fucking phone." And I didn't know what they were talking about because I couldn't hear it on the video because I wasn't wearing headphones at that point when I was editing my videos, and so I didn't hear it. I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But at some point I learned just to turn off all notifications on my phone so I didn't have this problem anymore. But now I understand. Like, and I don't know if you guys can all hear it because I don't know if people who aren't wearing headphones can't hear it. The buzzing and vibrating of whoever has that phone on their desk is driving me insane. And it's only happened twice.
People saying like, why is her race important? And it's like, it's important because she's the first one, like we don't celebrate the first white guy to do this because there's been tons, like it's the old hat now, and we need to recognize and celebrate people that are doing things differently, and it's also just recognizing the fact that her journey to getting to that position is very different from a white man's journey getting to that position, and being able to celebrate the fact that she overcame other barriers that maybe this guy didn't. And people don't necessarily want to hear that, especially white men, because everyone has their struggles. No one wants to hear like, you didn't work hard to get where you are.
You guys are not gonna fucking believe this. You guys are not gonna fucking believe what I just discovered on Twitter. I'm sorry. I'm paying attention. I promise I'm paying attention. I'm sorry for people who are interested in this. This is just where happy hour goes later in the day. All right. This is what you get when you make me drink the Imperial Peanut Butter Stout as the first beer. This is what happens, all right? Hang on. So, the leader of Carrie Smith's woke cancel horde is this insane person. Hey, hang on 1 second. Let me see if I can give me just 1 second. I need to find something on Twitter, and I promise this is going to be totally worth it when you see what I'm finding and how it's going to relate to what I'm going to show you. So, because it's something that I tweeted. Dr. Carlin B, does this person look sane to you? Got it. Okay. So there are several people on Twitter who are obsessed with me perpetually, constantly and perpetually. And they are doing the bidding of a crazy person, an unhinged lunatic who has an undiagnosed personality disorder named Carrie Smith. Carrie Smith has a YouTube channel. It's called Deprogrammed. Carrie Smith was actually pretty instrumental in my red pill experience, and then she turned into a psychopath because I got more famous than Carrie Smith did in 2020, and she didn't appreciate that because she thought she was going to be the former SJW that left the left, but then I ended up being the token Democrat who left the left. That's all in the past for me. I don't care about conservatives now, but that's just like how I got into this game, right? So this woman started an unhinged war with me that lasted 2 years, where she was constantly shit-talking me and spreading lies about me. And basically what happened is she amassed a whole horde of people who made it their life's mission to harass me, to get me to shut up. Now, there is one particular member of this horde who is Carrie's leader. This woman, she is a woke knitter. She's from the knitting world. She's extremely woke. She's also extremely psychotic, to the point where she was actually institutionalized for like a year. I'm not making that up. She posted about it on her Instagram. She used to be very active in the knitting community, and then she turned psychotic and got actually institutionalized for a year. And then she came out of the mental institution, and she decided that she was a conservative. So congratulations, conservatives. This is one of yours. Not really, but we're playing pretend here in the world where this is not a conservative, okay? But she pretends to be a conservative in order to grift to conservatives on Twitter to sell them yarn. And she, quite frankly, is a nut job. And so sometimes I like to make fun of her because sometimes it's okay not to have ethics and to make fun of legitimate crazy people, I guess. But she was annoying me one night, and so I took a picture, and this was her literal Twitter profile image at the time. And I said, does this person look sane to you? Well, apparently, this person is such an unhinged nut job that she took a screenshot of this tweet and literally made it into a t-shirt. She took a screenshot of that tweet 4 hours after I tweeted it, and she put it on a t-shirt. And this is the first time I've ever seen this. And what she wrote is, I'm seriously just seeing this for the first time. From imaginary arguments, it's because you are failing. They're convincing themselves. Okay, so here's what happened. She wrote a whole thread about me. This is 3 hours ago. She wrote a whole thread about me featuring a t-shirt that she made with one of my toys. Let's read Yes, Brooklyn. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Do it. Do it. Drag her, do it. So I tweeted at them earlier because I was feeling a little saucy and I was feeling very proud of myself for breaking the YouTube algorithm. And I tweeted at them earlier, basically saying, like, haha, losers, I win, you lose. And so her Twitter thread to me is, dingus, let me explain something to you. So basically what happened is, like, my YouTube channel is doing really well right now. I was about to give up on YouTube. I really was. And then I accidentally broke the algorithm with the Socialism Conference. And I'm getting so many new people in my audience, and welcome. I'm really glad you're here. We have a great time. But I was really excited about this. I was like, holy shit, I finally figured out how to game the YouTube algorithm. It only took 3 years. Awesome. And so I was feeling a little proud of myself. And I was like, my views are up 10 times over what they were. So that's pretty great. And she doesn't like that because these people have been on a campaign to convince everyone that I'm totally failing as a content creator, that no one supports me, that I have no fans, that I don't make money, that everyone who supports me on Twitter is actually me in a secret sock account. And so when I tweeted earlier that I was actually doing really well now, she says, dingus, let me explain something to you. I'm not on Twitter for views. I don't claim to be, whatever your current grift is. I don't care about being famous. You're projecting your own BS onto me, yet I don't even have 1,000 followers and I get more engagement. Well, she gets more engagement because she's in a horde of people and I'm not in a horde of people. And because I'm here to interact with friends, a concept that eludes you, you are a narcissist. They're obsessed with convincing people I'm a narcissist. Your empty bragging is as useless as you are. No one cares about your YouTube channel except you. And if you really think you're doing so great, why are you constantly defending yourself? Because I like triggering you, darling. Because I knew that my post about things going well on YouTube was going to trigger the ever-loving shit out of you. Why are you constantly defending yourself from imaginary arguments? Imaginary arguments. This woman literally tweets about me all day, every day of her life. You have no self-awareness, and you tell on yourself constantly. Everyone else sees you for what you are, though, and we're all laughing at you, especially this girl. This girl, to mean the person who took the screenshot of a tweet, of this tweet right here, and made a t-shirt out of it. I mean, come on. I appreciate the humor in this. I hope you guys do too. I had to share it. I had never seen that they quite literally made a t-shirt out of one of my tweets. Fantastic. All right, let's get back to work. Enough dilly-dallying, enough messing around. Let's finish this up. I don't think we're going to watch the third one today because I'm already a little tipsy, but we can watch another 20 minutes of this one. That's fine. Guys, mount that like button if you want one of those t-shirts. Maybe I should make one of those t-shirts and sell it in my store. My greatest hit tweets. No, we're not going to do that. My shirts are going to be way more clever than that. Anyway, let's keep going.
You earned it through
I
your
did.
skin
I
color
broke them.
and your gender, or
I win, they lose.
The fact that your parents were wealthy or whatever it is. No one wants to hear that, and it's not always necessarily true. It's just also recognizing that everyone has a different path, and bias is real, and we need to understand those things before we can actually do anything meaningful. Being colorblind is not the answer.
No, I literally had this conversation with another
being colorblind is not the answer. Okay.
And it was all about how,
Do you understand that when you say that being colorblind is not the answer, Sarah, that means you're literally judging people based on the color of their skin, which makes you the very definition of a racist? I'm just saying, girl, not a good look.
She's the preferred minority. I mean, it's really sad and sick that we have to have this conversation, but you've gotten your job yes, as a racialized woman, you had barriers to overcome, but you are the preferred minority. The fact that you're in this role is almost an example of
You're on the shirt too, bot?
And
wow.
colorism and all of these things, right? And she hated hearing it, right? It's like, oh, let's talk about something else, Janelle, or I gotta go, and we ended the conversation really quickly. But I felt I had to educate her or inform her that yes, you might have worked hard. Yes, you might have overcome tons of barriers. You're a woman, so certainly there are challenges
About
there.
15 minutes.
You're not
We're almost there.
A white size gender man who's able-bodied. However, when we're talking, racialized people, sometimes we're put against each other. We're pit against each other. Like right now, this whole conversation about anti-Asian racism and anti-Black racism, and because of George Floyd, have we forgotten all the anti-Asian? Nobody's forgotten. We're all allies in this for sure. Human rights is human rights, but we're always having to defend, which minority group is the most oppressed, which minority group is having the worst experiences. It's really so problematic.
And it's just, that's not the problem. Like, the problem isn't which minority group deserves all the attention. The problem is that white people have had all the attention for so long, and it's time to disperse that. We need to help everyone out, which is, that's hard. Just let's fix all the problems and they'll all be better. That's so easy to say. But just focusing on one thing doesn't mean that we can't focus on another. And further, giving attention to anti-Black racism doesn't diminish your whiteness, or it doesn't mean that there are less opportunities for you as a white person. I've seen a lot of people that think
it actually
literally
does.
Quote a lot, and it's a great one.
And by the way,
when you have,
I'm not going to say that white people are the poor oppressed victims of society, but I remember around this time when I was hearing from a lot of employers, they weren't going to hire white people. I mean, it quite literally does mean there are less opportunities for white people, particularly for white men, which I don't think is very fair for people to be judged by their skin color or based on their gender. I mean, I would say the same thing of Black people. I would say the same thing of Asian people. I don't think anyone should be judged by their race or their gender. But so then why were organizations making the proactive decision to not hire any white people? Made no sense.
Privilege, equality looks like oppression.
Yes.
And that's just, it's so potent. And I think, when we're used to, I don't know, and it's not even that we want to be brought down to the level of that kind of racism. I don't want to have to fear for my life every time I'm pulled over from a cop. I just want other people not to have to. And that's not an equal sum thing, like no one should have to fear for their life.
To be quite frank, everyone should fear for their life when they're pulled over by a cop, and you should know what your rights are and never answer any questions and don't let them search the car and don't do any, no one should be welcoming of the cops. That's just good policy, man. Cops are not your friend. Cops are not there to protect you. Cops will not save you. Cops can barely even be bothered to do their job for even the most minute of things.
A cop pulls them over. And there, if this person doesn't have to, that doesn't mean this person has to. There are a lot of things that aren't going to be divvied up. We're not slicing a pie here. There's enough for everyone. And I think white people need to, I guess, just get over the fact that, we have privilege and other people deserve that too. And to give that out doesn't mean that we're going to diminish our own privilege. If anything, it just makes the world a better place.
Yeah, I have this woman, she's like harassing me right now on my feed. She's like going, and I'm not even answering her. It's so funny. She's like tagging me and calling me out, and we don't have privilege, she says, and I just don't have the energy to explain it. Usually I would give her the white privilege white paper from Peggy McIntosh and say, go have a read. And a lot of people, they actually click, they read, and they learn, and they see the very nice.
That's unpacking the invisible knapsack.
The ways in which whites of privilege, and they're like, oh, they come back and they learn something. But I just feel like
Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack was written in 1989 by bougie feminist Wesleyan professor Peggy McIntosh. It has no academic citations whatsoever. It's all Peggy McIntosh's made up fantasy of how she as a bougie white lady sees the world. No citations, no references, no proof, just saying, here are all the things that I can do because I'm white, but it's all coming out of Peggy McIntosh's head.
This person is so close. They're not even going to click the link. They're not going to learn anything. They're one of those that are just really like on their high horse and blah, blah, blah right now. And I don't have the energy for it. So I'm just like, but it's such an important thing that people, they recognize, right? That they're, they were like, she's like, one of the things she said was, it's a privilege to live in the United States. We all have that privilege, right? Where it's a privilege to just have a job. We all have that. It's not race related, but there are certain privileges that are race related, right? Whiteness affords certain opportunities that just doesn't exist for Blackness or other ethnicities. So just how do we get people, Sarah, how do we get them all to understand and not to just dismiss it? Like, she's so closed that I'm just like, sometimes I have the energy to like undo and educate, and then other times I have to really reserve my energy and just focus on other things and not that depleting stuff. But how do we do this? Because it's important work. Like, I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and address her when I feel that rant, and I can be that keyboard warrior, but I don't always have that. So what do we do? What does somebody like you say to someone like her, even on a thread where it's not like person to person?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much harder on a thread. Like, I've tried to, especially when you're, I don't know, it's something I heard lately was, praise publicly, criticize privately. And I think people react to that a little bit better. So I've been trying to take some of these harder discussions into a private message. And, I also think it's important. I was on some thread
That's
earlier.
That's probably a really good idea. I want to take this super chat from Beth. Beth says, what are you making? Keen eye, Beth, because I have recently started a new project and it's in its very infancy stage. Just barely started. But I'll show you what it's going to look like real quick. I am making Stephen West's Speckle and Pop jacket, which I've made the Speckle and Pop multiple times before. It's a shawl that has now been turned into a jacket. And so you can see here, this is the part that I'm working on right now. And you can see it's a jacket that can be worn in a bunch of different ways. It can be worn upside down or right side up. And that's what it'll look like. And I might do some modifications on it because I'm using fingering weight yarn because I want it to be light. But I also want it to be just a little bit bigger and longer than what he has. But that's what it'll look like in its full form. Again, this is the part that I'm working on like right now. And then we'll do the rest later. So that's what it is. Fun times. One of my 87 knitting projects that I'm working on right now. All right, guys, let's wrap up. We have, about 10 minutes left of this? Hang on. Yep, about 10 minutes left. I hope you guys have enjoyed happy hour. It gets a little rambunctious, a little unorderly sometimes, but that's the way it goes with happy hour. We do happy hour at 5 p.m. every Friday. And of course, remember, join us for Socialism Saturday tomorrow night. It's going to be one for the books. And I will tell you a little bit more about that when we wrap up. But let's watch the last 10 minutes of this presentation. Oh, no audio? Shit. My B. No audio. My bad. That was my bad. Sorry. I'll rewind a little bit. My bad.
I just want there to be a dissenting opinion.
Yeah.
So if someone who's, maybe not decided yet won't read through and then see that person's post and say, that's a good point, and then have there be nothing after it to change their opinion or make them think a little bit deeper about that. I want there to be both sides. So if someone else is maybe a little bit more willing to change their mind, they can see those things. Of course, if someone is, I don't know, being racist and they seem like they might be open to having a conversation, I try to take it into a private message so that we can have a little bit more of a, I don't know, down and dirty conversation where they don't feel as publicly judged and they can really get stuff out, and I can too. And of course, everything that we say online is public in a way. That stuff can be screenshotted.
I wonder
and
what
shared to your
Sarah's doing
employer
today.
and whatever.
I wonder where she is in her anti-racist journey.
I'm never afraid of that. I don't think that I would be fired over anything I say, and I sort of try to conduct myself in that kind of way where if my husband or my parents or my boss saw this, would they think of me any differently or, any less of me, and try to conduct myself in that way. But sometimes it's not about convincing that one person. Sometimes it's about convincing other people that are looking on. That said, you shouldn't have to deal with that person. I don't know, like there are people like me and, Jonathan's group and all of these people who are here to sort of talk to a white person on white person and try to, I don't know, alleviate some of that pressure on
white
you
person
as a
on
Black
white
woman
person
to convince every racist that white supremacy is real. Like, it's that shouldn't be your job necessarily, and sometimes you have to pick your battles and sometimes you have to delegate. Like
totally picking my battles. Like it's in one of those posts, and I don't know, it wasn't even my post. I made a comment under a post. It has over like 150 likes, okay? And then there's this long thread with all this stuff that's not even related to my post at all, about race and ethnicity and white privilege, and it's devolving. And then there's of course Black people who are responding, and then she's calling them out and she's calling me out, and I'm like, I'm not even engaged. I really just want the thread to stop because it's a beautiful post and it's really detracting from what the original poster posted about. And I feel like, okay, I have to address it, but I don't have the energy for that 60 something person thread. I'm like, I'll go in eventually and just try to diffuse it. Like you said, I do turn into a keyboard warrior sometimes, but I do it, like you said, for a purpose. Like I'm making sure it is educating, even if it's not that one person. Like you said, others are watching, others can actually learn from it. And I do try to conduct myself so that if I do need to work with somebody again one day, hopefully never, they can turn to and see that my commentary with pride and not disgust, right? It's really important. So anyway, what's next for you, Sarah? What are you planning to do? Because you seem like you're really about the work now, and you've learned quite a bit. I've watched your engagement over the platform, and we're like, oh, she's gonna be good on my show. So what are you gonna be doing to make sure that the learnings that you've received, you impart them in your lives, in your life to other people that you work with?
Austin, did you find her?
And bring it to your workplace, of course.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm super lucky in that I don't have a lot of direct family that I need to have this.
No, I don't think that's
with.
her.
Like, a lot of them are pretty woke already. There's no problematic people in my family
too tan.
to like sit down and have a conversation with, or call them out during a family gathering. I don't have any of that at work. I'm part of this small little group of anti-racist activists, and we
got this super chat, and I'm sorry, I don't exactly know how to pronounce your name. I've only been here a short time, but I've learned so much. Let's keep going. Hey, I appreciate that, and thank you for being a channel member.
Have our own little Yammer group, and occasionally we'll post different resources or a link to a video or something. I'm not sure if I'm going to share the link to this video because I'm kind of embarrassed, but I might.
As you should be, Sarah.
My company is doing a lot of great work.
As you should be.
Internally, without my help, but I want to be there to support it. If I hear any of my white or non-Black or even Black coworkers who are disparaging it, I want to speak up. I think And I have this problem too, where I think a lot of people think they have to be all or nothing. Like this isn't my job. My job isn't to be an active anti-racist, but it's important work that I fit in when I have time. And I think, a lot of people think, like, oh, I can't do this as a full-time job, and then they just give it up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like exercising, like running for a mile is better than it's not as good as maybe like running for 3 miles. That's probably better exercise, but it's better than nothing. And that's always been, when I get really, really busy, sometimes things go on hold, but I'll come right back to it because it's better than nothing. And everyone has to prioritize. And my dog's been sick, and I've had to spend a lot of time helping her with that, and I haven't had as much time to like be a keyboard warrior on LinkedIn, or maybe educate myself as much as I should be. But it's okay, because that's life, and I want to encourage other white people, to, you don't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect.
Yeah,
I make mistakes all the time. I'm not doing as much as you, or maybe a lot of the other people that you have on this platform. But it's important to do something. And whether that's, like maybe calling someone in when you see racism at work, or using your whiteness to diffuse a situation that you see that might be elevating to being dangerous, or whether that's just educating yourself and trying to eliminate some of those microaggressions that you might be doing without even thinking about them, that's good. That's a good step forward. You don't have to save the world to make an impact. So I do want to continue this work. I want to be better. I want to continue to learn. I want to continue to do what I can to help, but with the understanding that sometimes I don't have the energy either. Sometimes I have other things I need to attend to, and that's okay. That's okay, as long as I don't give up, as long as I don't stop forever, as long as I'm still, engaged and willing to step in when needed.
Well, that's the thing about wokeness, right? It's not that you're in this perpetual state of, vigilance. It's just you're woke enough to activate it when you need it. So
right.
What you said is perfectly said, that everybody has a very, very important and even small role to play. And if we all stay vigilant for those moments where we see racism or experience racism, and we use our energy wisely to either call it out or diffuse it, or not, to just, like I said, maybe not calling it out is using your energy wisely. Then we use that energy for something else later down the road. And I think that is an important conversation, because too many people are afraid to get involved because they think that they have to stay in this like perpetually angry state. Like,
exactly. It is fascinating to see how they behave when they're not fully bought in. It's like they're normal people, and they're confused
about this stuff when it hits
deeply,
and just deeply, in smart ways, right?
Deeply
ways
confused
to make the world better. So I thank you so much, Sarah. You are a brilliant guest. I absolutely loved having you on. I do hope you share it with your friends and family and coworkers. And I would love to have you as a guest on a future show. So I would encourage everybody again to hit the like and share and subscribe button. I would love to hear your comments about this video and see what you think. And we'll see you next time on another episode. Thank you for being my guest. And if they need to reach you, Sarah, they can reach you on LinkedIn at Sarah Herman. That's Sarah without an H, and Herman with 2 R's and 2 N's. Sarah Herman.
Hang on. I want to see if I can find her real quick. Sarah without an H and Herman. Let's see if we can find her. Let's see if Sarah is still being a good anti-racist. Real quick, just for fun. I'm logging in. Sarah, Hermann. I don't know. I don't know if I see her. Maybe her information will be in the description.
The German way.
Yes.
Hang on. Maybe her information will be in the description. Oh, Herr. Oh, I spelled her. It's got 2 R's. Okay, hang on. Everyone calm down. Is that her? I can't tell. Hang on, let me show you guys what I'm seeing. I don't think that's her. I don't think that's her. Maybe. Black and white photo. No. Well, actually, does that look like her? Is that her? That's her, I think. I think I found her. Maybe. Nope, German. Never mind. No, that's definitely not her. This is so awful. I don't think that's her. No, too old. No picture. I thought this could be her, but I don't think so. Oh, well, I guess we're going to have to let that mystery just sit with us for today. If she's on LinkedIn, I'm sure that Bot will be able to find her. But guys, that is all we have for happy hour today. Now, I do, again, just want to remind everyone, we are kicking off Red May. This is important, okay? Everyone pay attention. In the month of May, there is a group in Seattle of socialists, real Marxists. They say they're socialists. They're not like hiding or anything. And they are called Red May. And they have a YouTube channel where we have gotten a whole mess of really socialist presentations from, like some of the most dystopian stuff you're ever going to see. And what they do every single year during the month of May is they do a series of presentations to celebrate Red May, all about different aspects of socialism. Now, it is currently April 28th, which means it's going to be May, which means Red May is about to start again. You can see they've already got a trailer on their channel. They haven't announced anything yet, but I'm paying attention. And we're going to be doing extra socialism in May because we want to make sure we're keeping up with Red May in real time. And guess what we might even do? If we can catch them streaming live, I will snipe that stream in a second. I will meta stream the shit out of Red May. And what that means is that we snipe their stream while they're live, and then we go and have fun in their chat as they're doing their little socialist thing. It's really fun. I didn't know that. I will have to check in on their events on Facebook. That is a good pro tip. So we are kicking off Red May by tomorrow at 6 p.m. watching the last live stream that Red May did. And it is called That Summer Feeling, a conversation about the 2-year anniversary of the George Floyd rebellion. We are watching that on Saturday, April 29th at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Eastern Time for Socialism Saturday. They literally do call it the George Floyd Rebellion. So guys, I am so excited. We're going to watch so much socialism this month. It's going to be amazing. We're going to learn so much about the socialists and their perspective and get our little peepers into real life dystopia that's happening right in front of us. It's going to be great. And yes, there is a movie night in the supporter Discord this week. Sadly, I won't be there because I'm going to be at a concert, but Trendolin will be there. And people in my supporter Discord this week are watching Zardos, which is a cult classic about a dystopian society in the future. And I'm so sorry I have to miss it, but placebo waits for no one, man. I can't control when they're in Boston, and I really like them, and I really want to go see them. So it's the first movie night I've ever missed. But I know you guys are going to have a great time for movie night watching Zardos. And how you can get access to movie night is by becoming a supporter of my work. Here are a bunch of ways you can become a supporter of my work. Let me put them in the chat. You can become a supporter of my work on my Substack, $5 a month, $50 a year. It helps keep me in business. I'm funded completely and totally by you. You can join my locals community and get access to the supporter Discord. You can join my Patreon and get access to the supporter Discord. You can make it, well, no, you can't get access to the supporter Discord by making a one-time gift. I just don't have it set up for that. But you can also become a member on this here YouTube channel. So for everyone that is a member or that is a monthly paying supporter of my work, I will be sending out an email on Sunday afternoon to people who are supporters on my Substack, my locals, my Patreon, or who are members of this YouTube channel. And I will give you instructions for joining the supporter Discord. And then you can join for movie night, which we do every Sunday at 8 p.m. And you can watch Zardos or whatever movie we're watching in the future. They're really fun. We do trivia. We have a great time with it. I really want to encourage everyone. It's a nice little break from the insanity of the world. And we really do have a great group of people that are, a little weird. We're wacky. We're like the bad news bears of the internet. But it really is a good time. So if you're a supporter of my work, look for that email on Sunday with information about your supporter perks. Beth says, gee, I think we need to do a January 6th insurrection reunion. Beth, I've already gotten interviewed once by the FBI. I don't need to get interviewed by the FBI again. Thank you. That I'm gonna keep my thoughts on that to myself, Beth, but I do appreciate the super chat. All right, guys, I'm gonna go and I think I'm gonna go downstairs and have another beer and watch a movie. I hope you guys have some fun weekend plans. Take care, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for Socialism Saturday. Yay! Bye, guys. Have a good night. We'll see you.